Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto leaves Konoha to become stronger part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. The winner is Hyuga Niji. Oh, how one event could change the future, but to say it merely changed would be an understatement. More accurate would be warped, stabbed repeatedly, tossed into a blender and crushed to tiny pieces, scattered in the wind to be collected and rolled into a fresh ball of clay, mashed haphazardly into something new that got fired far too long, which was dropped and broken, and then reformed in an entirely new way because no one had a clue what the heck it was supposed to look like. Uzumaki Naruto's defeat at the hands of Hyuga Niji jarred not only the destiny of 3 individuals, but Konoha no Sato, Hai no Kuni, the Godaikoku, and the entire shinobi world as we know it. Fate is a funny thing. Hinata. I picked myself up off the floor, gasping as I raised one palm before me, the other near my side. Again, I gasped. Chakra pulsed through my feet, propelling my sprint forward. He did the same, meeting me halfway to effortlessly block one palm strike, thrusting aside the next. I began to fall backwards, off balance, as I blocked a high, heavy strike, and instantly 2 fingers jabbed sharply into my bicep as a palm crashed into my belly. He closed in a blur as I stumbled back, and with lightning speed a very sparring unfriendly palm smashed brutally into my sternum. Chakra-imbued Juken strikes were not permitted, of course. It was for this reason that Niji Anai-san merely attacked me with the ferocious entirety of his hatred-fueled strength. I wasn't sure whether or not I should be grateful. I landed several yards away, struggling to draw a proper breath, head ringing at the pain in my chest. Stunned, I rolled onto my side, coughing wetly. "Nisan," I heard Hanabi say timidly. No one particularly enjoyed talking to Niji when he was in one of his rages. I think you're hitting too hard." "Maybe," he scoffed icily, "or perhaps Hinata-sama is too weak." My teeth clenched in pain and determination as I stood, fighting tears. I raised my right arm in front of me, the left near limp at my side. Again I croaked. He shook his head in disgust. "Why do you even keep standing? You're no match, Hinata-sama. Except that you're not destined to win." I glared at him, even knowing the look couldn't be half as menacing as his cold, calm scowl. "I can't give up. Naruto-kun wouldn't give up, so I won't either. As long as I can stand, I will." 3 passing Hyuga shot me a look. "Oh?" I defeated Uzumaki. "You think you're stronger than your precious Naruto-kun?" I opened my mouth, and then closed it. I wasn't sure what to say to that. He frowned. "If you want to defeat me so badly, order me to lose. Or even better, activate this seal," he screamed, and in one motion ripped off his hitayate, exposing his curse mark in a challenge. "No!" I cried, appalled. "Pathetic!" He spat, and suddenly there was little distance between us. I blindly raised an arm to block, but a strong hand grabbed it, pulling me forward and down. He attacked from low, rising to slam a palm into my chin. Pain shot through me. I realized in a moment I was on my back, and tried to blink away the darkness creeping in along the edges of my vision. Hanabi shrieked something like, "Nei-chan, you're bleeding." "Activate the seal, Hinata-sama. Go on, punish me for my words and disrespect. One hand, one sign, and I would suffer." "I won't," I whispered, trembling as I got to my hands and knees. To Hanabi's rising horror, I coughed up the specks of red I'd been choking on. I'm getting father," she cried, "and he's hearing about this. Niji, don't think he won't." She ran off, leaving us alone. I rose to my feet, swaying and lightheaded. "AGG gain." He shook his head. "You can't be serious," I said again. "I'm done with this insipid nonsense. You're not even worth my time," he spat, turning his back to walk away. Anger and despair flared up inside me. "I'm not finished yet," I cried, running at him. He stopped a short way down the walkway that ran along the manor, but still did not face me. Chakra collected in my palm when I was 8 yards away. I drew back my hand. A hard fist had buried itself in my gut, and all wind had fled me. Stunned beyond belief, I stared into my cousin's eyes, which were so suddenly inches from my own. His mouth was set in a frown, his white eyes cold and despising. Though his eyes were cold, his face calm, just beneath the surface of his pale orbs, so like mine, but at the same time so very different in too many small ways to comprehend, churned an unfathomable animosity, a barely contained and incredible fury like I'd never seen before. "Niji Anai-san." He spoke very slowly and pointedly. Elite failure. This will never change. The world momentarily listed to one side as, unblinking and dazed, I slipped limply off his unmoving fist. I dropped to the ground. You're weak, Hinata-sama, and you always will be. He left me there. I hissed the only word I felt I could right now, a word I did not use lightly. Kyuso. Then I cried. Naruto. After securing the mask and checking that it concealed my whiskers, I tugged the hood of the dark cloak over my head so that it covered my obvious blonde hair. With any luck, it would also shadow my eyes from view. Certain I was unrecognizable, I removed the panel of wood that had replaced my broken window. I frowned, seeing the fresh profanities and scribbles of Bakemono and Kitsune that adorned it. And when I was so close to being respected accepted, I would clean it later. I peeked cautiously out the window, surveying to the left and the right, even above. Slowly, still glancing side to side, I stepped out, lowering myself onto the balcony. Oh my freakin'! I bit back the string of curses that followed, instead bellowing them furiously in my mind as I sat down. Someone had set some sort of metal hunting trap below my window. When I had stepped on it, it had snapped shut to bite into my leg with sharp teeth. It was the kind of trap you saw in movies or books, that had always caught some poor wolf or a foe. Oh, very funny, I hissed through my teeth as I carefully removed it. A mess of red was dripping to my foot. I re-entered my house to quickly clean and wrap the wound. It would be gone without a trace in an hour. I threw a glance at the clock. Kyuso. It was getting late. If I didn't hurry, the shop would be closed by the time I got there. Screw stealth, I thought, launching myself out the window and to an adjacent rooftop. In a flash I was in the shadow of a water tower, and then that of a group of barrels near the edge. I grabbed a drain pipe, sliding swiftly to the ground, and then flickered across the street to another building's shadows. I shot diagonally across the street to more buildings, completely undetected by passing civilians. All ninja were given a wide berth. Near my destination I began walking normally, head down. Luckily my cloak and mask weren't extremely out of place. It was mid-fall, and nights were getting cooler. Masks weren't uncommon among ninja, like Kakashi-sensei, for instance, who happened to be the one who had given me this mask when he'd forgotten my birthday. And I thought I'd never need it. I looked up slightly as I passed a mildly tense group of familiar faces. Sakura, my teammate, and Kiba, Akamaru, Shikamaru, and Shuji were walking together. A sharp pang of guilt shook me as I observed Sakura's bandages and 2 broken arms. Closest to me, she glanced at me out of the corner of her eye, a subtle glint of recognition lighting it. Of course, we both knew that she couldn't tell the others right now, invite me to join them, or even say hello. It was a risk I refused to allow. We wordlessly passed each other. I entered the, thankfully, near-empty, stand with a sigh of relief, pulling my mask down past my nose to better draw in the array of heavenly aromas. A smile spread across my hidden face as I sat down on a stool. It was good to be back here. What would you like, sir? Your mask is what I accepted the napkin he offered, dabbing at the drool seeping through the mask before speaking. 1 miso ramen, Tuchiji-san, I whispered, glancing up to flash my eyes. Yes, coming right up, he caught himself. I almost jumped as someone sat down on the stool next to mine, and became absorbed in reading the wall menu. A Konoha Hittite covered his forehead, but he was one of the few shinobi I didn't know well. What I did know is that he had once thrown shuriken at me when I was 6, and, from his drunken cries, Nine Tails had killed his brother. Here you are, I am Nachan said with a warm smile, setting down a bowl. I whispered a quick arigato and turned so that I faced slightly away from the ninja. He was still engrossed in the menu. I sighed. I was getting paranoid, but then again I had every right to. What did I do to deserve this? That's it, I thought with a sudden burst of inspiration. I can use the Kyuubi's chakra. My trembling hands formed the sign of the ram, Hitsuji. Niji smirked. It's pointless, I told you. I can do it. I won't lose. I vow to win. The loser beating the gifted genius through sheer willpower, now would not that make for an exciting match? Don't forget to come watch me wipe the floor with Niji. Why fight a hopeless battle trying to defy your destiny? Niji scoffed at my efforts. I opened my eyes. 'Cause someone told me I was a failure. A roar tore from my throat as the fox's chakra sprang to life inside me, engulfing me in an explosion of power. The earth trembled slightly as the massive raw energy danced and spiraled around me. Niji observed with his Byakugan, a look of awed fear plastered on his face. Then he ground his teeth and raced toward me. I was caught off guard, and still getting a handle on the sudden power. Before I knew what had happened, 2 fingers jabbed my stomach, emitting a sharp burst of foreign chakra. Within seconds several things, I hadn't anticipated took place. It seemed, when QB had lent me its chakra, the energy had also rapidly replenished my own. My personal chakra, having been in constant contact with and suppressing the demon's strength since the day I was born, had somewhat adapted and gained an immunity to QB's destructive chakra. For this reason, it was necessary that my own chakra flowed strong in order to mostly protect my body from being damaged when QB's awoke. Niji hit a vital tenketsu. My chakra flow was cut. At the sudden imbalance, QB's power in turn exploded out of control. My body, unprotected, felt like it was fried from the inside out. The flare of chakra blasted Niji into the arena wall 30 yards away, despite a split-second attempt at a kaiten, and a massive crater formed around me as the soil was incinerated. My body was on fire and bleeding as a fox-shaped aura suddenly wrapped around me, and as I loosed a demonic roar of agony at the sky, a giant chakra image of QB materialized above me to do the same. The chakra fled back behind the seal before it killed me. Then it was over, and in a blur the ground rushed to meet me. We close in 5 minutes. Might want to hurry. I blinked. I'd been swirling my ramen in the bowl with my chopsticks. Tucci looked worried by this unnatural lack of appetite for ramen. I split the chopsticks, lowered my mask, and slurped up the bowl's contents in 40 seconds, a long time. As I fished the money from my pocket, a coin fell to the ground and rolled a few yards away. I handed the rest to Tucci before getting off the stool to retrieve it. The ninja still sitting next to me was stepping on the end of my cloak, I was soon to realize. I moved, and it was left behind. I froze mid-step. I knew it! I dived for the coin, rolled as I snatched it, and threw it at Tucci in one motion before bolting outside. Several pairs of arms immediately grabbed me, and even more began to pound and cut ruthlessly. I was winded painfully. My nose was smashed. I screamed as my arm broke at the elbow. Someone had a kunai and ran it across my belly, but, disappointed by the armor, embedded it in my shoulder. I was on the ground now, and the kicking began. I opened the eye that wasn't swollen a moment. Half of them are civilians. I can't fight back. I managed to curl into a ball, waiting for it to end. I've survived worse. They beat me to an inch of death, but I survive. It'll be over soon. I hoped. My prayers were answered sooner than I'd hoped as the beating suddenly ceased. Cage main no jutsu success. The attackers had been ensnared in an extremely contorted and irregular shadow. I beamed at my savior. Shikamaru! He nodded. Naruto, he called, tossing something to the ground beside him. Got it, I said, forming a hand seal, Kawarimi. I replaced with it, appearing beside Shikamaru as a shuriken clattered on the ground where I'd been. He caught me before I could fall. Let us go, idiot! Someone yelled. Yeah, kid, why are you protecting the demon? Mendokus, he shook his head in exasperation. Naruto's a good guy. You all are the fools. So what if he's got the fox spirit inside him? He's not the demon, and if you troublesome people can't get it straight, we're not about to let him suffer for it. Someone suddenly appeared beside me. Shikamaru gently placed me on Chuji's back. Let's get going, the Akimichi said. So, I said as he ran, Shikamaru's one of ours? I wasn't sure how to word it. He really is a genius, and he's heir to the Nara, right? I mean, Shikamaru has a sense of justice. Lazy as he is, he's not up for tolerating the superiority their side believes in, and he's not about to put up with bullying, either. He chose his side. It's not so strange, really. Kiba did the same thing, but mostly to watch out for Hinata. So what do the sides look like? Shikamaru, Kiba, Hinata Sakura, and Lee are with us. Niji's got Tenten, Shino, Ino, and Sasuke. But see, nothing's completely solid. Basically, we're all tied up by team bonds on the other side, which is probably why things haven't gotten too bad yet, he continued. They mostly just bully and humiliate us. No real fighting can start without retaliation from allies. For example, the only actual battle we've had started over Kiba's mouth, but it fell apart when Sasuke slugged Tenten for almost putting a kunai in Sakura, getting Niji on him for loyalty, and Shino set a swarm on Ino when she tried to go for Hinata, who was busy stopping Lee, who was about to attack Shino while he was distracted. Sasuke's kind of torn, and there's rumor he sometimes shadows you, chasing off civilians who prepare to ambush you. Of course they listen to him. Then there's Shino, who agrees with them but isn't about to lay a finger on Hinata. He's been threatening Niji for being rough in sparring sessions with her. He shook his head. Man, I pity Hinata, living in the same place as their leader. Then she's the only one of us that stands up to him. I thought a moment. Niji's the leader, who's ours? And the villagers? They're not on any side, they just attack you, and sometimes Lee, on sight, and anyone who they associate with you. Of course, they're left alone. Can you imagine them picking a fight with the genius Uchiha, or the Hyuga hero who stopped the demon, or a guy filled with bugs? No, I sighed. This is all so stupid. The Chunin exam started a war between us. How can we let this drive our friendships apart? We were on an empty street when, very suddenly, Chuji stopped running. I fell on my rear as he let go of me and turned to face me. Ouch. Chuji, what was that for? He frowned. Sorry, Naruto. It was then I noticed Shino walking up, Ino's body, abandoned, I realized, limp in his arms. Shino, why? I asked as Shino began to tie up Chuji. Shino pushed up his glasses. You'll thank us later for this, Naruto. You all need to learn when to give up, to accept that at times you are outmatched. When this happens in the real world, the only option is to give in. I don't believe a word of that. It's never time to give. My teammate could have died, Naruto. There was a cold edge in his voice, and I could tell he was angry. Niji almost killed her that day, because she was inspired enough by your admirable comeback to refuse to stay down. Her heart may never beat as strong as it could again. I will not lie, I hold you largely responsible for this. I'm sorry, I hung my head. The gap between Hinata and Niji quickly proved far greater than that between yourself and Kiba. Anyone could see that she should have forfeited. My eyes hardened, and I glowered up at him. I'm sorry, but only if I pressured her into a decision she didn't want, because it's not my place, or yours, or anyone else's to tell someone when to give up. It's up to the individual. So my voice softened. Why don't we just leave it at that, and call all this off? I'm scared of what we're doing to each other. It has to end before. It will end, when you admit defeat. We won't do that. He shook his head. I'm done, he told Ino. She nodded. Kai. Her body on the ground sat up, while Chuji blinked, confused. Dang it! He cried, citing the two and realizing what had happened. Whatever Niji says, I will not hurt Naruto while he's already injured. Let's go, Shino said, vanishing. Ino looked at the ground. Sorry, guys. She was gone. Wait. You can't just leave us here. Chuji whimpered. I'm hungry. I crawled toward him, already beginning to heal. I'll get you out of there. No, he shook his head. I'm not really in much danger, but if you get caught. Are you sure? Yeah. Any dummy could get out of here in a few minutes with the rope escape jutsu. Aha, yeah, really good thing I'm not tied up. Besides, Shikamaru would find me if I couldn't get out. You just try to walk, and cast a henge. Right. I said, standing. Henge no jutsu. I transformed into Iruka-sensei. Now go, and be careful, boss. A chill trickled down my spine, my fears confirmed. I didn't want to be a leader in this. Each step brought a collection of aches. I tried to walk normally, but any ninja would notice the slight signs of injury in my movements. I avoided the busier streets, keeping to the shadows and being inconspicuous as possible. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Kai. In a poof of smoke, I was no longer Iruka-sensei. It's him. The man behind me called, kicking me in the back. I stumbled forward as a dozen villagers jumped a nearby fence. I swore, running as fast as I could manage. I was pelted with rocks as I fled, and the mob followed. A stone glanced off my shoulder, tearing open the kunai wound from 15 minutes ago. One struck just below my neck with enough force that I stumbled forward. As my hand reached the ground, I pushed myself back up without breaking stride. The villagers were shouting. Look at him, scorched through by the demon's chakra and up walking days later. My dad was burned by the cursed beast, and he died. He's really a demon in disguise. A stone collided with my head, and I tumbled gracelessly to the ground. I looked up, gasping in pain from the run and the fall. The group looked at me like I was something disgusting. Look at his scared eyes, just one of the filthy demon child's tricks. Get ready, you monster! I raised my arm as a hail of stones flew toward me. I closed my eyes. Did a shadow just pass over me? Konoha Senpu! My eyes snapped open. In a blur, each stone was deflected. Bushy brow, I whispered. He turned his head, flashing a smile. Despite the dark, light from somewhere was bright enough to reflect off his teeth and glint off in a sparkle, or maybe his teeth actually produced their own light. My eyebrow twitched. I shook my head. Thanks, you totally saved my tail. It is nothing, Naruto-kun. A villager shouted, look, it's the friend of the demon. Move out of the way, kid, we'll deal with you later. A rock soared at him. I couldn't see from behind him, but collective gasps sounded from the group. The next moment he held his arm out to the side, and dust fell from his hand. I, Konoha's handsome green beast, Rock Lee, will not allow you to harm my youthful comrade, he proclaimed. You can't attack civilians, demon friend. I do not plan to, he declared, flinging a small, black sphere to the ground. It exploded into a smokescreen that filled the area. Someone lifted me with great ease and shot onto a rooftop. A few rooftops away, near the village's edge, we returned to ground level. I gasped, surveying the wreckage before us. The streets were empty and littered with fallen, near leafless trees. Houses had been crushed as though constructed of paper-thin glass. Massive holes had been punched through some buildings. In the near distance, a monstrous break was gaping in the wall of Konoha. This is. Lee nodded. This is the place where Gaara, or rather, the sand spirit entered the village. Luckily, Hokage-sama managed to subdue him before he could cause further damage. I see. I apologize if this disturbs you, Naruto-kun, but we will be safe cutting through this area. The villagers do not come here. Yeah, it's fine, I assured him. That aside, what is important now is getting you to the hospital. He said you are a mess. No, I drew the word out. Not the hospital. I can never be sure I'll get a doctor who likes me, and frankly the number of people who like me has dropped a long ways since last week. Could you take me to my apartment? Don't worry, I said, seeing his face, side effect of the stupid kitsune. I'll be just about good as new by morning. Lee nodded, and we were silent a few minutes as he walked. Why are the villagers doing this? He asked, and why has Saname-sama yet to intervene? I thought a moment. I gave them a scare, there's no question about that. Then, not 2 hours later, I'm told, Orochimaru and Oto invaded Konoha and the Ichibi attacked. So, Lee thought aloud, the idea that a repeat of the demon attack almost happened so soon after the incident in your match, that does not make a lot of sense. And Hokage-ji and I have no idea. You know we're at war, right? You know, us rookies plus your team. How could I not, he said, his face falling. He was the only one on our side with both teammates as enemies. You'd think he wouldn't let this go on, he should have broken up this little feud by now. Then, our sensei would have intervened. After all, not one of our teams remains undivided, but Hokage-sama sent them all out on confidential missions. There is no telling when Gai-sensei and the other Jonin will return, he sighed. I studied his face. My eyes widened as I noticed for the first time a white square of something taped to his cheek. It clicked as I remembered something Chuji had told me earlier. Lee, were you injured? It is nothing, he turned his head away. I looked harder in the moonlit darkness. You have a black eye too. What happened? Who did this? He avoided my eyes. You see, your match went on longer than expected. I was there at the end. I did not care in the slightest that the spirit of the Kyuubi had just sprung from your body to roar at the sky. I could not believe you had lost. I shouted desperately that you would stand up again, and Hinata-san did the same. The villagers now call us the demon friends, and claim we are under the Kyuubi's spell. I ground my teeth. They attacked you? I growled, furious. It was a group of civilians, one a retired jonin. A retired shinobi is counted as a civilian. I could only try to defend and escape. And Hinata? I whispered. I believe Hinata-san's status within Clan Hyuga protects her in the village, however. According to Kiba-kun, she is treated nearly as badly on clan grounds as you and I in the village. Kyuso, I whispered through my teeth. I hate this. All my friends are in danger for having anything to do with me. Shikamaru, Chuji, Kiba, they've got status to help protect them, but who's ever even heard of the Haruno? I ranted, do you know what happened to Sakura-chan 4 days ago? She was tailing me without my knowing it, and when I was attacked, she helped me escape. When they caught us, she was beaten to a bloody pulp next to me. I found myself in tears. Except you all don't heal overnight. I'm done letting you get hurt for me, and I don't want to be our side's leader. Put me down, I can make it the rest of the way. I will not leave you here, Naruto-kun. His voice was hard, there was no arguing. My voice was quiet as I calmed down. Then once I'm home, stay away from me. And tell the others to do the same. He didn't answer. We were out of the demolished area soon, and Lee began running to be safe. The streets were deserted at this hour, and in under a minute we were near my apartment. There was smoke above it. I swore. Lee frowned at the building and the people gathered around it. I am sorry, Naruto. It appears the fire has long ended. They would not have left anything, but either way we cannot check now. We were moving again. Lee, where are we going? I protested. I live alone. You can stay at my house. Demo. Naruto. I have made my decision. Whether you like it or not, we are in this together. I promise, he said in his declaring voice. I closed my mouth. I couldn't argue with that, after all. His decision was his decision, not mine or anyone else's. Hinata. Rendered unable to move on a much-used walkway outside the Hyuga household was not a good situation to be in. This was even more so true if you were lying prone and face down in an unsightly manner, were committing the disgraceful sin of crying, and if you happened to be a little respected and much despised weakling heiress, and word was flying that you were once again trounced by your branch family cousin. My position was definitely not a good one. The walkway was well used, but not this well used. Obviously, news was passing. Naruto would stand up, but I wasn't Naruto. I wasn't as strong as Naruto, and this time I couldn't find the strength to stand up. So, for my pathetic display, I was punished. Painfully. Demon friend, a man snarled. A foot connected with my side. Trash, someone muttered. A quick kick was thrown at my ribs. Failure. Kick. Pathetic little mouse. Kick. Stupid worm. Kick. Disgrace to our name. Oh shoot. An elder. Kick. Kick. Key. Crack. I screeched a squeak whimper of pain. The woman gave another crippling blow and stormed off. The tears began to fall anew. Trembling, I bit my lip to keep from crying out again. What did I do to deserve this? I already knew the answer. I stared in unblinking horror as the effects of Niji's attack took place. The fierce red chakra, so unlike Naruto's own, went haywire and rapidly began eating away at his body. Naruto reared his head back, and the chakra around him, so intense and vivid I felt sure it was visible to the unaided eye, instantly formed into a monstrous, demonic fox. At the same time I realized that the cloak of red surrounding Naruto's body had become the shape of a fox with 9 tails. As one, the now demonic Naruto and the life-sized Kitsune's spirit loosed a wild and terrible roar of anguish at the sky. I shuddered violently, clasping a hand over my heart. I thought my blood froze. Then, suddenly as it had appeared, the chakra vanished, and Naruto collapsed. Naruto-kun! I cried as tears streamed down my cheeks. In a moment, the proctor, who had retreated a good distance up the arena wall, hopped to the ground and cautiously approached him. I saw Niji moan and stand, weakly shaking off rubble that had fallen on him from the depression he made in the wall. An arm lay across his body, cradling his ribcage, and twin lines of red trailed from the corners of his mouth. His impulse Kaiten may well have saved his life. Genma closed his eyes. Uzumaki Naruto is unable to continue so. No! I cried, standing. I realized faintly how loudly the scream rang in the shocked silent stadium, and that most of said stadium was now staring at me. I didn't care. I couldn't bear the thought that Naruto, my unstoppable Naruto, had lost. My world came crashing down on me. I couldn't comprehend it just wasn't possible. Naruto-kun will stand again. Genma raised an eyebrow. She is right. Rock Lee bellowed from his spot in the stands, about 40 yards from me. As long as he breathes, Naruto-kun will never give up or concede defeat. In the corner of my eye I spotted a disturbance in the still crowd heading in my direction. A strong hand locked almost painfully around my wrist, and another forced me back into my seat. Are you out of your mind? Father hissed in my ear from behind as Lee shouted something else. Let go of me! I cried, escaping his grasp. I clutched the rail in front of me with both hands. I wanted him to get up, even knowing, somewhere in my mind, he would not. But I was desperate. Naruto will win. He said he would, and he won't go back on his word. That's his Nindo, and he. My breath caught as 2 fingers jabbed painfully and precisely into a point on my neck. My jaw slackened, and my fisted hands loosened, arms slipping from the rail to hang limp at my sides. My legs swayed with sudden lack of strength, and the world spun sickeningly as I slumped forward. An arm wrapped around me to catch me before I could fall. Dazed, I blinked very slowly, trying to force heavy eyelids to open wider with little success. Each time they drooped shut, but I opened them again a bit less than the previous attempt as my strength slipped away. A distant, echoing voice pierced fleetingly through the thick silence. The winner is Hyuga Niji. The world at last went dark, and I knew no more. My world had shattered that day. Naruto should have won, but he hadn't. He was my inspiration, my idol, my inner strength and drive to keep going. When he failed, what was I to do? I didn't know, so I was now broken, confused, and hopelessly lost. It was likely for these reasons that I'd blindly challenged Niji earlier today, disregarding my recuperation, lost my near non-existent temper, and was currently lying prone on the floor, receiving a kick to the ribs from every Hyuga who passed. For now I was not only the clan failure, but the fool who had disgraced the Hyuga by standing up for the demon over supporting the fellow Hyuga who had saved the village. Hinata. I ground my teeth and waited, prepared for a kick and not sure how much more I could take. You will answer me when I speak to you. I realized too late it was father. A savage kick in the side flipped me onto my back. I retched and spewed blood. Hinata. Hi, Otitus-sama, I gasped. Hanabi says Niji did this to you. Hi, he did. Did he use Jukin on vital points? I hesitated, but I couldn't lie to him. I had felt it. In his final A attack, yes. Hayashi's face hardened further, and he frowned. It is forbidden in sparring. He needs to be reminded of his place. As he turned to leave, I suddenly had the strength to reach out and grab his ankle. He glared at me. I tried to find my voice. Please, you see can't punish Niji-san F for this. It's not his fault his hatred is misguided he is confused. His foot jerked free of my hand and slammed onto my chest. Disgrace. He roared and raged, to falter in putting the branch in its place. My vision flickered, my head spun. I felt the neck of my shirt tighten as I was roughly hoisted into the air. This is the final straw, you filthy disgrace, he hissed venomously. I trembled as his Byakugan flared menacingly around his furious eyes. You are no heiress of mine. He drew back a palm that glowed with chakra. Chichiyui. A small, despairing voice cried. I hesitantly opened my eyes in a moment, and Hayashi slowly lowered his hand. We'd attracted a considerable audience. Several pairs of white eyes observed from a safe distance. Even more were surely watching through walls with their bloodline. Hanabi, pale with fright, eyes wide and brimming with tears, stood a few feet away, far closer than anyone else dared. Her arms were in front of her, a finger to her lips in a gesture more commonly used by me. Please don't, Chichiyui, please, she whimpered quietly in distress, utterly terrified. Father's face softened with remorse. The veins marking his bloodline instantly relaxed. His gaze returned to me, and suddenly I was flung against a wall, hard. I slid to the ground, gasping and weak and broken, but thanks to Hanabi, alive. You'll be sealed in the morning, father said quietly. He walked away. I realized I was tired. It was cold, but I didn't care. The pain was finally too much. A nap sounds like a good idea. The world went dark. I could sense movement, but my body certainly was not moving. I could feel the tops of my feet dragging slowly over the floor. My knees hung low near the ground. What is this? My upper body was resting against something that was warm in contrast to a cold breeze, and my arms were hanging in the air, each held in a firm grasp. I next registered a pattern in the motion, and soon took note of the sound that matched that pattern. Footsteps, someone walking slowly. There was another rhythmic noise, very soft panting, I realized. Slowly I half opened my eyes. It was very dark late night. To the right of my face was a curtain of dark brown. The motion stopped a moment. My body was shifted slightly, as I'd been gradually sliding downward. I let out a long moan as dully aching breaks and bruises throbbed painfully at the adjustment. Almost there a soft voice whispered between breaths. The grip on my arm gave a gentle squeeze. Emoto-chan, I whispered hoarsely. My eyes closed again. Arigato. I faded once more into peaceful oblivion. It was warmer when I woke. I was lying down, and could feel a soft blanket covering me, as well as bandaging covering my bruises. I opened my eyes to see a dimly lit room, a window showing that it was the dead of night. Emoto-chan. I'm here, Nei-chan. A small hand rested on mine. Thank you, I said weakly. You saved me twice. Yeah, well, I could tell from her voice she was blushing. Did you have to pass out on the other side of the grounds? And sheesh, do you know how heavy you are? I studied Hanabi's face from the corner of my eye. Though she was trying hard to sound like her normal self, she was still slightly pale. Not my fault you're so short, I teased back lightly, getting a small, brief smile in response. I looked around. This is your room. How did you get me here? I murmured. I carried you on my back, she said with a hint of pride for her feet. I waited till it was late and father was asleep, then I snuck out of my room to go get you. Of course, no one who saw us would bother me, but they didn't make any effort to help, either. She scowled. I didn't even bother asking any of them to carry you. They'd probably accidentally drop you or something once I got you here. I went out and ordered one of our medics to see you. He complained to an elder and was excused. Apparently father declared earlier that no one was to be prevented from helping you. But no one has to anyways. I just had to do my best with academy first aid, so you need to see a doctor. She stood, and my gaze drifted from the ceiling to her. I noticed for the first time the dark splotches of red down the left side of her white shirt. My head quickly turned toward her as I tried, without thinking, to sit up. My eyes snapped shut as a sound of pain rose from my throat. Hanabi was kneeling by me in an instant, helping me to slowly lie back down. What's wrong? What is it? She asked fearfully. Hanabi, I hissed, the fury in my voice giving it a very unfamiliar tone. Did they hurt you? I demanded through my teeth. She followed my eyes to the stain and blanched, wincing visibly. While I carried you, you coughed in your sleep. Ogomen for my outburst. It was my blood, not hers. I knew how disturbed she was by the sight of the life fluid. It was a secret she shared only with me. She must have been very concerned about me, to get here and not immediately change out of the gore-spattered shirt. It's nothing, she waved aside my apology, and more likely the thoughts she'd guessed and picked up from my face as well. Hanabi and I shared an uncanny knack for doing that around each other. Now you need treatment. Since no Hyuga medics will help, that leaves the Konoha hospital. Can you move? Very slowly, she helped me to sit up. The multitude of bruises didn't throb so painfully. Hanabi must have applied some sort of ointment. In a minute I was situated on her back again, feet hanging to the floor with our size difference. She started toward the, thankfully, nearby, estate exit. So, I was thinking, she started, your teammate, Abirame-san, he only lives about a half-mile away, right? The guards would probably refuse to let in a guest to help you, so what if, once we're outside, I leave you and fetch him? The hospital's far, but he could carry you easily. I hope she didn't catch my small shudder at Abirame-san. Shino-kun is away on a mission. No, he's not. There was virtually no use in lying to Hanabi. Sometimes I had to hate our uncanny talent. But she didn't press, having read the subtle uneasiness in my voice, the pain of the topic, as well. Kiba-san isn't much farther then. Arigato again, I said gratefully. Not like I could just leave you, she said, especially because in this condition, you might not survive being sealed. When it came back to me, I was glad she couldn't see my face. In the morning? The caged bird seal. She understood my silence. It'll be okay, she whispered comfortingly, and for a moment it felt I was the younger sister. When drops of water silently began falling onto her, she remained respectfully silent. Lee. I rolled over again on the couch. It was not because I was on the couch instead of my bed, which I had spent 5 minutes politely arguing and insisting that Naruto should use before he accepted, that I could not sleep. I had camped on enough missions that I could probably be perfectly comfortable on the floor. With a sigh of defeat, I once again reached for the picture frame that lied face down beside a lamp on a small stand. I had promised repeatedly, each time I put it down, that I would not look again, but each night I did, doing 600 or so push-ups the next morning as self-rule. I stood on the left in the photo, one arm around Niji's shoulders and the other giving the camera a thumbs up as I proudly struck the nice guy pose. Niji was scowling, narrowed eyes glaring off into the distance, and his arms crossed. From the right, Tenten gave Niji bunny ears while smiling vibrantly. Guy-sensei had a hand on mine and Tenten's shoulders, leaning over so that his face was between mine and Niji's as he winked and flashed a radiant smile. My face further fell as I took in the scene from over a year ago. I missed those times, I mumbled, fingering the wooden frame. In a minute I reached out without looking to place it back on the stand. It slipped from my hand as it met the edge. Throwing my blanket off, I was off the couch in an instant, picking up the photo. The glass had cracked. I stared a moment. Then the tears I'd been fighting all week fell. I removed the picture from its frame and began gathering the broken glass fragments with trembling hands. If I look again at this picture to promote more unyouthful moping, I will do 8 hun. A rock crashed through my window, and I noticed at once the familiar note stuck to it. My hand unconsciously tightened on the photo as I shot through the door to my room, slamming it shut. In one move I pushed my bed onto its side. Naruto fell out with a startled noise in a tangle of blankets, vaulted over it, and braced my back against the bed. Bushi BR? The wall behind us was blasted in as the paper bomb exploded, blowing out the room's window and sending splinters and chunks of wood flying into the opposite wall. What the heck? Naruto exclaimed, instantly awake and alert. We are under attack, I shouted as a second detonation downstairs shook the room. I grabbed a sheet, laying it on the floor. Fire was beginning to spread to the room as I hurriedly pulled a drawer out of my dresser and dumped its contents. I repeated this with the one beneath it before gathering the sheet's corners. Finally, I snagged the bag I kept stocked for short-notice missions. The process took up a total of 4 seconds. WO. The floor lurched and shifted to an angle as the side nearest the first explosion began to collapse. Naruto and I were tossed off our feet. My nails dug into a floorboard as I began sliding toward the new edge of the floor. Bushy brow, Naruto shouted, pointing with one hand. I looked to see a collection of exploding tag kunai bury themselves in a remaining part of the side wall. Flames began to lick at the tags. Jump! Naruto cried, scrambling on all fours and leaping out the window. I rolled to dodge a falling chunk of ceiling and launched myself after him, into the cold, moonlit sky. Naruto grabbed my hand. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. My home exploded behind us. 15 Narutos locked hand to ankle to become a living chain. The one farthest ahead grasped a high line of lanterns strung between 2 buildings. 16 cries of thrill and terror were heard as we swung down. My foot nearly grazed the ground, and then we were hurtling forward. The shadow clones dissolved into smoke a moment later, flinging us across the night sky. There. I pointed to the building we would land on. We soared in an arc over 2 others before reaching it. I landed in a roll, while Naruto crashed and skidded before springing to his feet. Then we ran like never before, shooting from rooftop to rooftop with adrenaline-fueled fury. Naruto looked me seriously in the eye. Lee? I nodded, face grim as I gave a thumbs up. We are in this together. 2 shadows raced for the wall of Konoha, one holding a sheet full of supplies in one hand and crushing the corner of a now sweat-streaked photograph in the other. Hinata. What business do you have in the village at this hour? The gate guard asked. I'm fetching a friend to bring her to the hospital, Hanabi said, all professional. Unless you would like to, Hitori-san? His white eyes narrowed a fraction. Unfortunately, I would not, Hanabi-sama, he said, permitting us to exit. Hanabi set me down, and shot Hitori a glare worthy of Niji's rare praise. Don't you touch her. Of course not. I would not dream of harming her, Hanabi-sama. She looked to me and crouched down. Hey Nei-chan? HM. Come on, she said, dabbing at my tears with a handkerchief. It's not the end of the world, I'll be right there with you tomorrow, okay? So Nei-chan, please don't look that way. I bowed my head a moment, lowering my already downcast gaze. Arigato, I said, barely above a whisper. She forced a smile. Now hang in there, and I'll be right back with Kiba-san, alright? I paused perhaps a moment too long. She turned and began to run. I said something I probably shouldn't have. Hanabi. Her steps stopped. I didn't meet her eyes. Goodbye. I knew she was giving me a weird look. See ya, she said, confused and a little concerned. I heard her run off. In the morning, I'll be branded with the seal. I'll never be able to make Otosama proud, or change the clan because I'm a weak failure, and I always will be Niji and I-san was right. There's no changing that. Or was there? Maybe Niji had been half right. If my destiny were sealed to the branch, I would more than likely never have a chance to change the way of the clan. But he was also half wrong. People could change, of that much I was certain. That meant that it was my responsibility to do what I could while I was free, But to do that, I would need to defend my freedom. I'll do it. I'll become stronger. I shakily rose to my feet. And I'll prove it to Niji that people can change. Hanabi. I was deep in thought as I sprinted for the Inuzuka house. Something was wrong. That dead look in Nei-chan's eyes. I'd taken that to be fear of receiving the curse mark, and sadness. Her dreams of improving the clan were about to be dashed, and she'd never get a chance to prove herself. But that wasn't all of it, I could feel it. She'd avoided my eyes and spoken short words to keep me from reading it. Hinata was up to something, but what? Goodbye. I skidded to a halt in reverse direction, eyes wide with the realization. Through that uncanny talent we shared, I'd so unexpectedly picked up on her thoughts. She wouldn't. But I knew she would. Hinata. Almost there, I gasped, leaning against a building a moment to rest. The wall was 30 meters away. I can make it, drawing shallow breaths and gingerly cradling my ribcage. I walked on. I froze as I sensed a presence behind me, and then sighed in defeat. I would recognize that chakra's signature anywhere, as easily as she would know mine. I turned around, dropping my henge guise as Hanabi stepped from the behind a building. She took a tentative step. Why, Nei-chan? I winced as guilt gripped my heart, and shifted my gaze, unable to meet her eyes. Please, Emuro-chan, this is something I have to do. I began to turn away. In a moment she'd closed the distance between us, and was tugging on my sleeve. Please don't leave me, she whimpered, moisture collecting in her wide, disbelieving eyes. It was very possibly the hardest thing I had ever done to refuse as I held her pleading gaze. I have to go. It's the only way I'll ever be able to help the clan. Who cares about the clan? She cried, tears falling as she gave a betrayed look. Just look at what they did to you. You'd risk your life to help the people who did this? I put a hand on her shoulder. It's not their fault, Emuro-chan. I can't blame them, and I can't be selfish. They hate me for showing them I'll do poorly at my job. I owe it to them to do this. It's time I work to make a difference. Nei-chan, if you leave you'll be missing Nin. You're hurt, you can't even breathe right. Your heart's weak, you can't make it out there. I'm worse off here if I stay. I'll be the first heir in clan history to be banished to the branch. Think, Emuro-chan, the one responsible for the end of the sacred purity of the Hyuga L line's blood. What happened today would happen again, but worse, and then won't even have status to protect me from their rage. Her pale lavender eyes shone with tears. She hiccuped softly. And Nei-chan, she threw her arms around me in a gentle hug, softly pressing her head against me. The embrace was so gentle that hardly a slight ache was drawn from my wounds. Her voice shook. Then if there's absolutely no way you can stay, Nei-chan, then let me come with you. I wrapped an arm around my sister's trembling form and cupped her head in my hand with the other, gently stroking her dark locks. My precious Emuro-chan. Okay, I answered. Her teary eyes beamed up at me as we separated. Really? Yes. Thank you, Nei-chan. Hanabi-chan? HM? Gomen nasai. I got her hard in the stomach. She crumpled like a paper sack. Shock was written all over her face as she went down. Forgive me, I turned to leave, but felt a tug on my pants leg as I tried to take a step. I turned my head. Hanabi's eyes were unfocused as she almost soundlessly spoke. Nei-chan. It's something I have to do. In a moment, her small, quivering hand released me. I will return, I promise. My body flickered away, and in another minute had left Konohagakure no Sato behind. I could hardly feel miffed as I should that Nei-chan had been able to incapacitate me in one blow. I could not even be angry to find she had definitely gone easy on me in sparring. What really got me was that she had deliberately deceived me, taking advantage of my desperate emotions so that I wouldn't detect her lies, and because I had blindly fallen for it, she was gone. I was alone. And somewhere out there, Hinata was too. Enter. Someone called. I stood from the bench and grunted, a hand immediately covering the sore pressure point. I composed myself in a moment and stepped into the meeting room. Father and several stern-faced elders were seated around the box-shaped room for the emergency meeting. As I entered, all white eyes focused on me. Hyuga Hanabi, one elder said in his gravelly but clear voice, what is your account of the events regarding Hyuga Hinata's disappearance? I took a deep breath, prepared to tell my story, but tale might be a bit more accurate. When I finally recovered and got to my feet, I just stood there, an arm folded across my middle, staring in a daze. She's gone. Yet I couldn't feel angry at her. I just felt a little abandoned. In 10 minutes of shivering, I shuddered violently and realized I was freezing. It was cold out, wind was rolling down the empty streets, and I was still in warm weather clothes. My head low, I turned and stiffly began to walk toward the Hyuga estate. Great, I realized, what am I going to tell Chichiui? My head jerked up as an explosion roared in the near distance. I heard a wind chime ring softly at a shockwave. I looked up to see two people shoot over the alley I was on, from one rooftop to another so quickly I could have imagined it, in the opposite direction of the explosion. I formed a seal and activated my bloodline trait to glimpse two boys, very different in appearance but both oddly dressed in their own respective ways. The next moment they had vanished beyond my 30-meter range, the greatest distance my eyes could see clearly while looking through solid objects, in this case, the building. I let my dojutsu deactivate. What in the world? /////. In a short minute of investigating afterward, I had gleaned a vital bit of information off a conversation in the cheerful crowd of ninja and civilians gathered on one side of a demolished and burning house. Two birds with one stone, I'd heard a man say, "Can you believe our luck?" The demon and the demon friend, dead and gone a few seconds after, I had realized two things. First, having been by chance in the right place at the right time, I knew something crucial that the village did not. Uzumaki, Naruto, and Rock Lee were alive. Second, I had something to tell the clan. So, with a stern face and the skill of a practiced composer and teller of lies, I began my tall tale. At about 2 o'clock this morning, Hinata-san and I exited the grounds. I was going to leave her and fetch her teammate Inuzuka Kiba-san, who could carry her to Konoha Hospital. However, on the way I felt something wasn't right, and returned before reaching the Inuzuka home to find she had left. I searched, and soon found Hinata-san nearing the house of Jen and Rock Lee. She claimed there was something urgent she needed to discuss with him, and she couldn't tell me. When she refused to listen to me, I planned to knock her unconscious to get her to the hospital, but she overpowered me with ease. At this inappropriate look of frustration at the aforementioned easy overpowering crossed my face, made authentic as I fueled it with the frustration in my inability to stop her leaving. She turned to enter the house, and I lost consciousness for a minute. When I woke, the house was collapsing in flames. A mob of villagers had paper-bombed it. I bowed my head, finished. While the average 7-year-old was adept at lying, I happened to be an exceptional 7-year-old liar, and that I could deceive the entire Hyuga Council proved it. None of the room's occupants suspected my report to be nonsense past the second sentence. "Thank you," Father said with a nod, "you are dismissed." I bowed and then stepped outside, sliding the door shut behind me. They don't have a clue. There would be consequences when the truth was discovered, I knew. I didn't care. I stepped off the walkway and into the garden in pale dawn light, slowly raising tired eyes to the bleak, cloud-blanketed sky. I don't care because it's something I have to do. It's time I work to make a difference. I will return, I promise. You will be a great leader someday, Nei-chan, I whispered. My hand unconsciously brushed the light bruise on my middle. Nei-chan, in one move too sudden for my eyes to see, Nei-chan was able to render me helpless. She did it to protect me. I'm not ready for the shinobi world, and she proved it. But two clouds broke overhead, dropping a ray of dawn light onto me. Hinata, Nei-chan, you promised you would return, so you will survive. When you come back, I'll be strong like you. The next time you need me, I'll be ready to go with you and help, I promise. Nei-chan, you had better keep your promise, I whispered inaudibly, clasping a hand over my heart as I faced the dawn sun. Hinata. What happened? I was being carried piggyback, by someone who was both moving quickly and taking care not to jostle me. I recognized the unmistakable scent of the forest around me. I grunted, opening my eyes. Hinata-chan, you're awake. Huh. Hey, your face is all red. If this is a dream. It was reality, and I fainted. How is she? A familiar voice asked. She has a few rather serious injuries, but she should be all right. She is most likely unconscious due to fatigue, blood loss, and pain. Darn, what could have happened to her? I moaned very softly. My eyelids twitched before fluttering open. My vision focused in a moment. Through the foliage above I could see a gray, cloudy sky, with rays of light poking through the gloom in only a few places. Then I noticed the two people knelt beside me. Naruto-kun, Lee-kun? Hinata, are you feeling okay? Naruto asked, concerned. My cheeks warmed slightly. Hi, I'm fine, Anno, where are we? We found you unconscious around a mile from the village, Lee explained. We were fleeing the village after being attacked. Now we are perhaps 5 miles away. I bandaged your wounds and gave you a Hyogen to help accelerate your recovery. But what happened to you, Hinata? What were you doing out there? Naruto asked with a frown. As my head cleared, I remembered. I felt terrible. It had hurt me more than Hanabi would ever know to deceive her, strike her, and leave her behind, but I refused to endanger her. She wasn't ready, I wasn't even sure I was ready, to survive the life of a missing nin. I froze, someone was approaching. But just as I activated my bloodline, a softly chuckling man dropped from the treetops to land in front of me. He wore a standard Chunin vest and a leaf headband, but something deadly about him, something that made my instincts scream danger, left a much bigger impression on me than his outfit. Lucky me, he muttered snidely, and just when I was getting bored. Something was very wrong. I didn't recognize his face. This man was not a shinobi of the village. Even with this discovery made, my eyes widened as he withdrew a kunai from his holster. He snickered malevolently, lazily tossing it between his hands. What are you doing away from home, little girl? He sneered in false kindness. Surely you know of our dear Sandame-sama's order, forbidding citizens from leaving the village, right? He took a step toward me, and I found myself shaking. We wouldn't want any sound nin to get you. I took a step back. He shot past me, and my shoulder was slashed open. I cried out. Come on, little ninja. He laughed behind me. You'll have to do better than that. Through my Byakugan I saw him leap toward me, kunai hand drawn back across his body and poised for a sweeping strike. A decapitating strike. No! I can't die in my first 3 minutes outside. I promised Imuto-chan I would return. Crouching, I whirled, channeling as much chakra as I could muster into my right arm. Seeing me face him, he changed targets on a whim, and in a practiced motion my palm flashed out. A sharp pain in my side blazed with agony, and my jaw locked to bite back a scream. My eyes drifted up to the Chunin just as the left side of my face was spattered with blood. His speed and recklessness had been his downfall. His chest had crashed into my outstretched palm. A terrified expression crossed his face as he realized what he had just coughed up. What have you? I felt his heart shudder erratically under my hand, and winced as he convulsed and collapsed to the ground. Were I not in pain, I probably would have vomited in reaction to the killing, but as it was I could hardly think past the inches of kunai still lodged in my side. It had fortunately missed any vital points, but the wound was moderately deep. If I removed the kunai, I could bleed to death in minutes, but quite likely if I didn't I'll bleed to death in an hour. I pressed a hand below the knife as I continued to walk. In moments it was dripping with blood. I walked for some time, not in the least sure where I was going, except generally away from Konoha, for if another impersonator were to find me I would be finished, and even less certain what I hoped to accomplish. All I felt I could do now was get away, and pray I would somehow survive. I had to survive. I had no idea whether I'd been walking for a couple of minutes or hours when I fell and couldn't get up. I had no strength left. No. I thought of my sister whom I'd abandoned, waiting every day for me to return, trusting with all her heart that I would keep my promise. No. I tried to move, but my ribs ached, my side screamed, my shoulder burned, and my body just wouldn't listen. Blood fell from my mouth as I coughed weakly, and darkness slowly crawled in along the edges of my vision. I fought it, in a last desperate attempt trying to keep my eyes open, only to find they were open, and the world still faded. My eyes closed. My refusing to accept the inevitable wasn't about to change anything. I've failed .. After giving them thanks for saving me, which they brushed off, more than glad that they'd come across me in time to help, I told the two only that I'd run away, had been attacked by a strange shinobi impersonating a leaf Chunin, and had tried to distance myself from the village. Are you serious? Naruto gasped, in reference to my description of the strange ninja and his words, as I finished my short explanation. I knew that something was wrong, but what could this mean? Lee wondered aloud. I don't know, we thought for a moment until Naruto broke the silence. Hey Hinata? Naruto asked tentatively, in contrast to his usual nature. A look of concern and something else, guilt, had crossed his downcast face. It appeared to pain him to meet my eyes. Why did you leave the village? I was considering saying I'd rather not talk about it, but at the ashamed look on his face I realized I had to. He was holding himself responsible. I sat up carefully against a tree trunk, and then very softly began to explain. You see, I have never been liked within the Hyuga clan. I'm the clan failure, the family defect so being the heiress. The other clansmen see me as unworthy and undeserving, not fit for a leader. They say I've dedoomed the clan, and I can't blame them. And now, after the incident during the finals, they claim I've further disgraced the F family name. Their hatred was rekindled and I intensified, and I paused a moment. Ayano, most of my eye injuries aren't from fighting that Chunin. Naruto's face at this point was heart-wrenchingly sorrowful but fierce before, overwhelmed by shame, he tore his eyes away from my own and shut them with what could have been a grimace of pain. You mean? It was done by Neji and Aizen, and several other clansmen. Suddenly fuming, Naruto punched his hand and harshly hissed, "That jerk. What the heck kind of family?" "Please, don't blame him," I said, looking to the ground at thought of my cousin's past. "I love Neji and Aizen like a brother. I love and care very deeply for all of the Hyuga. That's why I ran away. I'm shy and weak, and I don't have any confidence, but I looked up at them, tears in my eyes. But more than anything, I want to help the Hyuga. I want to be able to protect them, so that no one will have to suffer the way Neji and Aizen has ever again. That's why I need to become strong, and prove myself." I closed my eyes, overcome by soft sobbing. "And now, SN sniveling like this, you must think I'm more pathetic than ever." Two hands rested gently on my shoulders. Naruto and Lee were on either side of me. "How could we possibly think you pathetic?" Lee asked good-naturedly. "You pursue a most courageous and noble goal indeed." Hinata, Naruto whispered, "I think we do understand. You're a lot like us. You want more than anything to earn people's respect, and to protect the ones who are precious to you, right?" I sniffled, wiping my tears, and nodded. A grin spread across his face. "Then how about we get stronger together, the three of us?" Lee's face brightened as well. "Yash! That is an excellent idea, Naruto-kun. If we let our youth explode," here emphasis was provided by a fist enthusiastically pumped into the air, "we can show Neji and everyone else that we can change." I giggled as the boys' hands slapped together in a high five. "So what do you say, Hinata-chan? Are you with us?" Uplifted by their high spirits, I blushed lightly and managed my own small smile as a sense of hope welled up inside me. "Definitely." Naruto sprang up to jump for joy before returning to the ground in the same motion. A new resolution lit up his face. "All right. Sounds like a plan. I made a promise, and I failed. You guys had faith in me, but I let you down. I'm not letting that happen again, that's a promise. We'll return someday and show everyone how awesome we are." Lee held a hand out to the center of the small circle we formed. "YOSH. Let us all promise to work hard." Understanding, I gave a determined grin as I placed my hand on top of his, adding, to never give up." Naruto's hand covered mine as he finished off. "And to never go back on our word, believe it." Thus, Naruto, Lee, and I became a team. On that day, the three of us, three failures, came together for the start of the journey of a lifetime. Hanabi. I sighed, setting down the watering pail, standing up, and brushing dirt off my knees as I finished. Neichan's garden was really one of the clan gardens that would normally be seen to by servants. Hinata had told me Kasan took care of it when she was alive. Now that Hinata wasn't here to tend to it, I was determined to keep the plants healthy myself until she returned. Because she would return. Head down, I dragged my feet down the walkway. The grounds had an aura of almost disturbing quiet today. Sandame-sama, who had been ill and bedridden the last few weeks, with the result that hardly anyone had heard from him lately, had just now called the first large village council meeting since the Otosuna invasion 2 weeks ago. Father had been notified yesterday, and as he and dozens of other Hyuga, from every elder and council member to strong voices and important figures of the branch house, were attending, I could only assume this special meeting was highly important. Whatever was going on, it left the manor grounds eerily noiseless, and me without a morning training session. This type of day, I'd normally get to hang out with Neichan. I bumped into someone as I turned a corner, and looked up to see Neji and 4 more genin behind him. My cousin's scowl became a smirk. "Ohei gozaimasu, Hanabi-sama," he said, but for his face a perfect picture of politeness. He threw in a quick bow that I found to seem rather the opposite of respectful. "Tell me, why do you look so down this morning?" I should add that I didn't like Neji very much. At all. If I was ever kind to that terrible person, it was because Hinata insisted that his past was so complicated. He's lost a lot, and he had every right to be angry. I didn't understand how she saw this to justify the dirty fiends tearing down her confidence and thrashing her in their spars, so I naturally assumed that was her overly kind and sympathetic nature talking, and I told her so. Still, she had claimed I was mistaken, and had wrapped up the matter by asking me to please be kind toward him. So I called him Nisan and played nice for her sake, and truly did make several honest attempts to understand my cousin the way Hinata did. I couldn't. Niji! A girl in purple snapped quietly behind him, slightly disgusted by his words. He shot the blonde a look before looking back to me. What's this, not going to answer? And you know, it's only proper manners to make eye contact when someone is speaking to you. Oh, but surely you don't miss that pathetic sister of yours. Death and loss are among the most basic and common aspects of a ninja's life, Hanabi-sama. If you ever hope to be a strong kunoichi, then... Shut up! I shouted, glowering up at him with my teeth bared. My hands curled into trembling fists. He didn't know it, and I knew he didn't know it, but he was playing on my worst fear, that Nei-chan was out there dead right now. His eyes narrowed calculatingly a moment before he slipped on a mask of surprise. Sama-mason, have I said something to upset you? My right hand twitched, 2 fingers pulled out of the locked fist, itching to form the seal that his side of the family dreaded. Out of my sight. He bowed mockingly again. As you wish, Hanabi-sa. Now. He passed me, briskly heading down the walkway. Are you coming or not? He called to the group as he turned a corner. The blonde girl sighed, and I felt a hand on my shoulder. Don't listen to him, she consoled with a sympathetic smile before she followed. Shino passed me wordlessly. The Uchiha's eyes were downcast, but I could see the darkened rings forming under them. He raised his head like he just noticed I was there, his blank gaze lifting to hold my eyes for a moment, before he walked on. Tenten's eyes were filled with grief as she met my gaze. The older girl knelt down to my level and embraced me. I'm so sorry, Hanabi-chan. She stood and went after the others, and I was alone. I almost wanted to tell Sasuke and Tenten that their teammates were actually alive, but then I would have to reveal that Hinata was as well. I couldn't take the risk of letting anyone know. Perhaps it was better for all 3 of the escaped genin that Konoha thought them to be dead, so they wouldn't be targeted by pursuit teams. I was about to continue on my way when a thought occurred to me. What could those 5 be doing together? As far as I knew, they were from a number of different ninja cells, and Tenten was the only one who could even be called Niji's friend. Shino-kun is away on a mission. That's it! I gasped. Whatever had been going on between Nei-chan, the other rookie genin, and Niji's team, this had to have something to do with it. Niji. About time, I thought in mild annoyance as the others entered my room. I slid the door shut, not that it would do much to stop anyone spying on us here. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed and eyes closed in thought as they took seats. A few seconds after the silence which indicated they had settled, I spoke. Surely you all know why we're here? Cut the drama, Hyuga, Sasuke said, thoroughly uninterested. Why, what's the meeting for? You mean it's not obvious? I said. My eyes opened. It's time we finished the failures. Their numbers advantage has been cut. We've been going far too soft on them, and they've made it clear they have no intentions of backing down. While they're struggling with the loss of their 3 pitiful leaders, we must challenge the fools, one final battle to crush their petty little farce, their delusional aspirations, once and for all. I studied their strange reactions. Sasuke and Ino looked disbelieving, almost shocked. Tenten met my eyes, both angered and upset. Shino's eyebrows angled inward in surprise and strong disapproval. Are you kidding? Ino finally snapped. If you are, it's not funny. What the heck's wrong with you? I raised an eyebrow. Enlighten me. I don't see the problem. Niji-san, the 3 of them were murdered, Shino stated coldly. Do you not think this has gone too far? It's not like we killed them, I said, raising my nose. What should we care that a mob of villagers paper-bombed them? The dope Sasuke spoke for the first time. He just wasn't the type of person you can imagine dying. He had dreams too, stupid dreams, but he did have them. It's not right. You claim they had the numbers advantage? The 5 of us breathing down their necks with half the village already out to get them was hardly what you could call a fair fight. He roared. I shook my head, sighing in exasperation. You rookies could never understand. I agree with those rookies, Niji. Tenten cried. How can you be so cruel? Didn't you care for Lee at all? My face hardened with a frown. The imbeciles thought they could do anything just by trying, as though simply refusing to die could keep one alive. I spat. Those 3 tried to defy destiny, and they paid the price more than anything. This should make especially clear how important it is that we teach them this lesson while we still can. We owe it to our teammates to do this to protect them. After all, isn't that what friends are for? I glared at them, and in a moment a few of them grudgingly nodded. Good, I said. We'll attack them in the demolished zone, where they meet. They'll likely gather today as well, while their parents are away at the council meeting. Should they arrive, we must be prepared to challenge and defeat them, swiftly and decisively. They'll learn. I paused to activate my Kekkai Genkai. My eyes found Hanabi 25 meters away, her Byakugan active as well, in time to see her start in surprise and run off. I scowled, deactivating the dojutsu. Meet me east of the demolished zone in 20 minutes, I said to the four, pushing away from the wall to stand up straight. I'll be right behind you. After exchanging looks, they stood and left. All but one. Yes, Tenten? I said when we were alone. She was silent, staring at me with disbelief and grief in her bloodshot eyes. Emotions flickered across her face. For a moment her teeth ground, and she glowered slightly in anger. Then her expression softened with distress, and once more fell to anguished sadness. Niji, she whispered, are you really so cold-hearted? Do you mean you truly cared nothing for our teammate? He was a fool, Tenten, doomed from the start of his ninja career. He fought fate with everything he had, so this was destined to. Don't give me that destiny crap, she yelled. Answer me, Niji. After all we've been through together, you honestly felt absolutely nothing for him, nothing at all. What did he mean to you? I liked and would protect him as a teammate. Tenten took a step back, appalled. You sick monster, she turned. Wait. I grabbed her wrist before she could go. What? She snapped, seething. I wasn't sure of what I should say, so I tried the first thing that came to mind. It's better they died now than on a mission. I trailed off as it suddenly occurred to me this could come out wrong. Why? She hissed. Because then, the failure would hurt the village. Tenten wasn't the type to slap her teammate. Which why a fist slammed painfully into my cheek. Team! She cried, running off in tears. For a minute, I just sat there, shocked. I blinked. I messed up. I wiped my mouth, and sighed as I looked at the small bit of red smudged on my hand. Hopefully she would come around and understand soon. For now, however, I had something to take care of before I met up with the others. Hanabi. I was sitting in the garden again when I sensed someone approaching. Hello, Hanabi-sama, came Niji's voice as I stood. He added offhandedly, you seem to be spending a great deal of time in this garden lately. If this is about my spying on your meeting I started. It's not, he stated, walking up. He stopped a short yard away, glaring down at me. I glared back, hiding my nervousness and trying not to squirm. Even without his Byakugan, his scathing white eyes seemed to bore clear through me. I felt a pressing and panic-inducing sense that nothing, no thought, or secret, could be hidden from him. You know something we don't, he said confidently, in a serious tone. He began to walk slowly around me, looking at me like I was a criminal. I stood unmoving, my eyes trained ahead, determined not to let the intimidation tactics shake me. And how are you so sure? I asked coolly. I focused my chakra carefully, activating my Byakugan without the use of hand seals, an early accomplishment I prided myself in. I knew at the moment of your outburst earlier, Hanabi-sama. You're hiding something from the clan, something concerning Hinata-sama's death. My eyes widened a fraction, and he caught the slip easily. Impossible, could he know? No, he's got to be bluffing. I have no idea what you're talking about, I declared, raising my nose with my arms crossed. But of course you do, he said, casually kicking over a cluster of soft pink flowers as he continued to circle. I clenched my teeth, trying to conceal my emotion as he watched for a reaction. He resumed his interrogation. She wasn't really in that house when it exploded, was she? I snorted. What reason would I have to lie, Nissan? He said, pretending to be deep in thought as he lazily stomped another few flowers into the dirt. I don't know, perhaps to cover an escape. I wouldn't dream of. Out with it, Hanabi-sama. Tell me what really happened. You have my word I won't tell the other Hyuga, and look around. His Byakugan flared to life in an instant. Everyone else who lives in these main house quarters around us is at the council meeting. You and I are the only two people in the area. I didn't miss his double meaning. While on the surface he pointed out that no one else would learn of the secret, he was simultaneously slipping in a threat. I felt a fleeting siren of panic inside, but made no outward show of it. He wants a game of threats. As he passed in front of me again, I grabbed his arm, pulling him to face me. I don't like your tone, I declared flatly, my free hand forming a two-fingered seal in warning. To my surprise, he merely smirked. I have already figured you out, Hanabi-sama. You threatened with that hand seal, but you wouldn't dare activate the mark. Let me guess, your sister asked you not to? He had guessed dead on, but he didn't need to know that. My eyes narrowed coldly. You think I won't? His free hand firmly grasped the wrist of my hand that held his arm, and as I released him in surprise, a hand pushed painfully against my elbow. He shoved me away. With a yelp, I staggered back to stay on my feet, and looked up to see him launching himself at me, spinning his body in the air to sharply drop a heel onto my shoulder. My knees were buckling at the force when a palm smashed into my chest. I thought my ribs were crushed. My back connected with a wooden beam, but as I began to slide to the ground, a hand closed around my neck. No, I don't think. I know. If you were at all willing to activate the seal, Hanabi-sama, I am quite certain you would have done so by now, he hissed matter-of-factly in my ear before releasing me. My arms folded across myself as I sank to my knees. He knelt down. A hand lifted my chin, and I was forced to look into his menacing Byakugan. In contrast to the unconcealed fury in his eyes, his voice was clipped, cool, and even. Now, Hanabi-sama, you are a clear-headed child. If you knew for a fact that Hinata-sama were dead, you would not deny it. I realized in a moment what he was getting at, and glared back. Nei-chan is a treacherous tremble jumped into my voice. Even a practiced liar, I couldn't bring myself to say this. Nei-chan is da. Just as I thought, he said, dropping my chin without warning. Your report was nothing more than a tall tale, but fortunately for you, I have something rather important to attend to at the moment. He stood. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone yet. He vanished, and I spat a word I'd picked up from Kiba-san. In a moment I got to my feet, bruised but otherwise uninjured. At least I'd learned quite a bit from reading lips, eavesdropping on their meeting. It explained what had been going on since the Chunin exams, the secret of feud that Nei-chan had refused to tell me about. Obviously, Hinata and those other two had been with the failures, as Niji called them, and the fate-respecting nutcase was planning an attack on them today. Why am I just sitting here? I've got to warn them, I thought. I couldn't put a finger on why the need to help them felt so natural to me. Maybe it was because they were Hinata Nei-chan's friends, and people who were fighting and standing up for the same things she believed in. They meet in the demolished zone. What could that be? What part of the village was hit hardest in the invasion? I gasped. The Sand Tanuki monster. I skidded to a halt as I entered the part of Konoha many villagers now called cursed, not even stopping to catch my breath before my hands flashed through a string of seals. Byakugan. There, almost on the edge of my range, 4 people were seated within the remaining 3 walls of a half-destroyed shop. I turned off my Kekkai Genkai and ran in the direction. Nanny? I had frozen in my tracks, but not intentionally. My body involuntarily took a few steps as a boy with black hair sticking up in a funny-looking ponytail stepped out from the shadow of the building. He was holding the rat hand seal, NE. From my right, 2 figures sprang into the air from behind a pile of wreckage. I looked to see 2 rotating gray blurs shoot toward me. Gatsu. The blur in the lead came to a screeching halt, skidding until a wild-looking boy was crouched next to me. An identical person crashed into him with a grunt, the impact triggering a burst of smoke. As it cleared, a small puppy was hanging onto the boy's shoulder. Leaning forward, the boy blinked twice and sniffed the air in precaution. Hanabi-chan? Kiba-san asked, surprised. Hi, I said a bit breathlessly as my racing heart rate normalized. Shikamaru, let her go, he called. Guys, you can come out. False alarm. The Nara's lengthened shadow broke away, and control of my body was abruptly returned to me. I wobbled, and Kiba steadied me. 20 yards away, a pink-haired girl and a boy rather on the plump side stepped from behind a fallen tree to my left. Chuji, Sakura, hold it! Shikamaru shouted, running toward us. Don't let your guard down. How can we be sure she's not with Niji? His eyes quickly swept the area. This may be a diversion. No way, man! Kiba shouted, and his puppy Akamaru yipped in agreement. We can trust her. Alright then, but what if she was forced into it? Shikamaru returned. I wasn't! I cried, frustrated. I'm here to warn you because Niji's planning to attack you. The girl, Sakura, started in surprise. How do you know? The 5 of them just met at the Hyuga Manor, and I spied on them. In about 2 minutes, they'll probably be coming for you. Are you serious? The one the leader had called Chuji gasped, while Shikamaru swore. Kiba clapped a hand on my shoulder. I winced slightly, but he took no notice. Great work, Hanabi-chan. You're real brave to do this. Now hurry and get out of here, before they show up. Are you kidding? I protested. I hadn't been able to help Nei-chan, and now it seemed I wouldn't be allowed to help her friends either. Why? You have a numbers disadvantage, right? I can fix that. Absolutely not. Kiba barked. No way am I letting Hinata's 7-year-old sister get involved in this. But that's final. If we dragged you into this mess, his face fell, and I noticed for the first time how much older he seemed to have become since I last saw him. His weary eyes deadened with grief as a far-off look entered them. Hinata would never forgive us. You've already helped out plenty, Hanabi, Shikamaru said, taking over. We just can't ask an academy student to fight with us. So that's it, I thought, hanging my head. I'm too weak again. The Nara continued, so hurry up and get out of here, before. Akamaru barked, Kiba sniffed, and then glowered fiercely into the distance. They're coming. I was suddenly pulled behind him as something plummeted from the sky. A kunai plunged into the ground 5 yards away from us. I followed the enraged Dognin's gaze to 5 figures standing atop a large building just outside the wrecked area. Failures! My cousin's harsh voice reached me. The 5 silhouettes vanished a moment. They reappeared in the air, falling toward us with their backs to the morning sun. Peeking around Kiba, I could see Niji's ferocious Byakugan blazing with hatred as he continued. We challenge you to one final battle, here and now. This ends today. In front of me, Kiba bared his teeth and growled menacingly, his clawed hands flexing. Chuji frowned anxiously. Sakura gulped, her hands curling into fists. Shikamaru glared at the approaching 5, appeared to be mentally cursing his luck or wishing it was a different time, and finally glanced at the rest of his team before looking ahead and declaring, "You're on." They landed 10 yards away, Niji in the lead, and raced toward us. Scatter! Shikamaru barked. Someone caught me around the waist and shot 30 yards in the blink of an eye. Before I knew it, I was being set down behind the remaining wall of a house that had been smashed by a fallen tree. 2 Kibas stood in front of me. Stay hidden, one said sternly, and they were gone. Niji. They scattered, and we raced after them. Each of them doubled back sharply. Sakura went for Ino. Kiba, most likely, barreled on all fours at a crimson-eyed Sasuke, while Akamaru similarly rushed Tenten. Running through hand seals, Chuji launched himself at Shino, who prepared to unleash a swarm of Kakaichu. Shikamaru's shadow bolted toward me. My heart raced in anticipation as I dashed toward him with a scowl, dancing and darting out of the shadow with ease as it tried futilely to capture me. Naruto's eyes widened in surprised panic as I neared, hardly even slowed, with a mere frontal approach. He manipulated his shadow wildly, branching it, looping it back on itself, and throwing out a number of rapid-fire strategic traps, but still failed to catch me. At full speed I launched myself at him, drawing back a palm. He abandoned his jutsu and drew in a leg, prepared to strike with a kick to overcome my reach advantage. But before he did, I replaced with a large chunk of rubble. Instantly I was behind him. I would waste no time, I had said swiftly and decisively, and I had meant it. Shikamaru's eyes were wide in horror as he turned his head. Hakro Kujiyanshu. Kanahigaku no Sato. A tremendous voice boomed sharply across the village. I started, and Shikamaru, exploiting the distraction, whirled and aimed a heel at my head. I blocked and shoved the foot away, and we broke apart. I saw the Kiba I'd correctly suspected to be Akamaru yowl in surprise and tumble to the ground at Tenten's feet, hands over his ears. Sakura and Ino, both about to throw their first blows, flinched and jumped apart. The true Inuzuka spun on heel and jumped away from Sasuke, who had already sidestepped regardless. Shikamaru glared lazily, his eyes narrowed, and I shot a look back. In a moment he shook his head, hands slipping slowly into his pockets. Time out. Something's up. I nodded slightly, my Byakugan fading as my stance relaxed. On both sides, the others followed suit. It's Sandaime-sama, I realized, probably using some sort of jutsu to amplify and distribute his voice in the distance. I could see people leaving buildings, streaming onto the streets wearing curious faces. I quickly met the eyes of each of my team, and we flickered to a rooftop. I saw the failures gather atop an adjacent building. In no time the streets were crowded by civilians, while dozens of shinobi viewed from the rooftops. On the distant Hokage tower stood the third Hokage. Hear me, my dear village. His voice boomed, I bear grave news. We have been deceived. Our greatest jounin have been captured, and the enemy waits at our doorstep. The whole of the village council has been imprisoned. While I simply furrowed my brow, all around me reactions rose up. Inuzuka howled for his mother and sister, and the members of Team 10 for their families, while Shino gasped with a barely noticeable start. A small, unmistakable shout of Chichiyui came from the failures' direction. Throughout the village, outraged and tremendously bewildered yells voiced disbelief and demanded what was going on, just how this crisis could have taken place. And finally, Konoha, your Hokage. My eyes widened as in an abrupt change, his voice became a viciously razor-sharp edge. Your beloved Hokage has fallen. My mouth hung open as I watched Sandaime-sama pull off his face like a mask. The moment he did, dozens of sound ninja appeared atop the wall of Konoha. Cries of terror rang through the village as the white face of the impostor was exposed, and every shinobi over 20 or so tensed instantly. I've seen that man in history books. This is a hostile takeover, Hidden Leaf. Fail to obey me, and you shall suffer dire consequences. I, Orochimaru, now name myself Godame Hokage. He laughed chillingly, and what he said next truly surprised me. From this day forward, I am your absolute ruler. Now, Hyuga Niji, report to the Hokage Tower at once. Everyone else, return to your homes until further notice. I had actually jumped, and now just stood staring, my mouth hanging open in a manner, I'll admit, most undignified and surely idiotic looking to the observer. Once the shock backed down a bit, a fleeting sense of something else managed to register in my stunned mind: fear. I could feel my team, and even the failures eyeing me. Uchiha frowned and walked up to stand at my side before whispering, "What could that freak want with you?" I composed myself, recollecting my cool. I have no idea, but there's no use in fighting him, at least not until we know more about our situation. For now we should do what he says. The four nodded, and I cast a sidelong glare at Shikamaru. Some other time, I said, and at once my team body flickered to follow orders. My eyes narrowed. So you're with sound. The silver-haired spy shrugged. I'm not really a genin either. But come to think of it, as a hand passed over his hittite, the 8th note on it was replaced by the leaf mark. He grinned with false cheer. Konoha belongs to Oto now, so it really doesn't matter. I scowled. Why am I here? He pushed his glasses up with a finger, an amused smirk crossing his face. Of course. Right this way, Niji-san. I followed him away from the tower. We left the trees and emerged in a clearing, but even here it was almost dark as night. The hidden leaf forest was so thick in this area that a glimpse of sunlight was a rarity. Hardly the smallest amounts of it could get through the tangle of leaves and branches overhead. A diversity of trees in a vast assortment of shapes and sizes surrounded us. Here we are, he said laughingly, and vanished. I was alone. I scowled, forming the Tora seal. Baya. Hello, Niji-kun. I whirled and jumped back several yards. Impossible to conceal his presence so well as to get right behind me undetected. So, this is a legendary Sannin. My face hardened once more as I stared down the smirking snake. So you're Orochimaru, I stated. Indeed. And it is certainly a pleasure to meet you, Niji-kun, after hearing so much about you. I just had to see for myself. What do you want with me? I demanded evenly. He laughed softly, tilting his head back a bit, and closing his eyes. My skin crawled, but I concealed my unease. I want you to show me your power. His eyes snapped open, and I flinched. I ducked under a kick, and an elbow met my face. I staggered back and blocked a fist, but the following uppercut caught my jaw, throwing me into the air. Backflipping with a grunt, I landed on my feet, hands clapping together in a seal. Byaku! I choked on the word as a fist landed below my ribcage, followed by a heavy kick to the chest. My back met a tree, and I fell to my knees. What just happened? He's too fast coughing. I raised my head to keep my eyes on him. There was now a look of displeasure on Orochimaru's face as he looked into my eyes. You'll have to do better than that, young Hyuga. I must say I'm disappointed. My breath caught. What is this murderous intent? The man laughed, madness shining bright in his yellow eyes. Now let's begin. The world around me went crimson as hundreds of nameless weapons rapidly blasted through me. For the longest 5 seconds of my life, I screamed in pure agony. Then the barrage ended, and I bent over to heave my breakfast onto the ground. Gen Jaijutsu and not real. I held one trembling hand in another in an attempt to steady it. My Byakugan activated weakly. All the blood, gouges and slashes, the dozens of punctures, and a kunai still lodged through the forearm vanished as my eyes showed me reality. And not real, I gasped out, assuring myself once more. The snake Sannin snickered. What does it matter if you don't see it? You have other senses. Real or illusion, pain is pain. On cue, something invisible plunged through my heart and shot out my back. The suffocating smell of blood filled my nose, its iron taste my mouth, and I felt a warm, sticky liquid dripping over my skin. Screams tore through the air, rang in my ears, and mine was one of them. My bloodline failed at the shock, and the instant it did, I saw a kunai graze my cheek from behind, shooting forward to bury itself deep in the hitayuta of a tall, white-eyed man standing before me. Niji, he breathed, and keeled over, dead. No! Fa thither! The anguished cry was cut short as something slashed through my neck. I was thrust back into reality with overwhelming abruptness. Unblinking and sweaty, gasping hungrily for air, I slumped limp to the ground. I was scared. That was too easy, rather boring. I didn't truly expect one so clear-headed and realistic as yourself to fall so easily to my illusionary arts, but it would seem I've gotten my hopes up for nothing. I reached slowly for the shuriken holster strapped to my leg. My violently quivering hand fumbled clumsily at the clasp as twitching fingers refused to work together. With much effort I finally palmed the throwing star. In short, jerky motions my arm moved forward, and a delayed moment after stopping in front of me released the weapon. It dropped straight to the ground, and my hand fell on top of it. Pitiful child. Did you honestly plan to throw that at me? I heard a sigh. I suppose I should have known better than to expect one from a mere side branch of his clan to wield any real power. I squeezed the shuriken hard. At once my palm bled. At the pain, real pain, I was snapped out of my fear-induced trance. Blood boiling, I sprang to my feet, yelling out as my palm impacted his chest with a solid thud and an intense burst of chakra. Ack! He cried in surprise, but still managed to get away before my follow-up attack. Byakugan! I snarled and pursued, striking quick and sharp, precise despite my rage as I flowed through an uninterrupted stream of attacks that he dodged with equal grace. He smacked aside a palm and flickered to the tree line. My penetrating eyes tracked him as he dashed through treetops, hidden from normal view as he cut to the left around the clearing with unreal speed. I calculated rapidly. There. A break in the tree line turning a little over 90 degrees, I focused a great amount of chakra to my feet and shot into the trees. Orochimaru's eyes widened visibly as I flew to intercept him mid-leap, drawing back an arm. I delivered a crushing palm strike to his face. His neck twisted unnaturally at the force. I frowned. Replaced with a mud clone? The fake faded to a murky brown and crumbled on collision with the tree. With chakra I attached my feet to the same tree as I reached it, and turned my head to glare daggers at the real shinobi who hung upside down with his arms crossed on a branch 20 yards away. Almost had me, he said with a chuckle. His eyes were bright with excitement. I growled, hurling 6 shuriken at him. He swung up onto a branch to dodge 3, deflecting the rest with a kunai knife before he pushed off toward me. I focused my chakra and did the same. At 10 yards he threw the knife with a backhand motion. I moved my head from the whistling projectile's path and caught its handle with the opposite hand, flicking it back in a similar movement. As he dodged, I aimed a flying kick at his head, barely missing him as he bent back to duck. As we flew past each other, my left arm shot out to the side, the hand chakra adhering to a nearby tree. The force swung me in a near circle around the trunk, filling the bandaging with splinters of wood as my hand slid quickly over the bark, before I released my hold. Momentum hardly expended, I shot toward Orochimaru in a flying kick, landing a heel in the man's gut. He sailed at an angle toward the ground, crashing through several branches before colliding with the earth to stir a cloud of dust. I landed lightly in a crouch 10 yards away, and in a moment slowly stood. Again he laughed. It would appear I've largely underestimated you, he hissed as he sank into the ground and seemingly vanished. Moments later I saw the ground behind my right foot glow with chakra before it slowly rose and morphed into a white hand. I jumped, flinging a kunai. It met the earth with a dull thud as the hand vanished. Scanning my surroundings with the Byakugan, I landed on a tree's sharply angled trunk. Orochimaru sprang silently into existence from higher on the slanted trunk, behind me, with a kunai poised to stab. He soared over me as I let myself fall forward, attaching my hands to the trunk. Pushing off with my feet, I swung my legs forward to lash a heel at the snake's jaw. I flipped out of the kick, landing on my feet, while he rolled to his. He turned to face me. After wiping his mouth, he examined his hand. He was bleeding. Amazing, he gasped, incredulous, that almost hurt a grin slid across his face before he sped toward me. I drew 2 kunai in a flash, using them to parry blows from his knife. He jabbed and slashed rapidly, easily pushing my speed to its limits. My eyes traced his moves, and my body just barely kept up. Thankfully, I was accustomed to facing high-speed opponents. I had been backpedaling steadily as I blocked, using my extended field of vision to watch behind me and move accordingly so that I did not run into the trees. Picking up on this, and seemingly curious as to how I would react, he suddenly increased speed, swiftly switching his attacks between the right and the left. My eyes could only just follow as I parried and dodged, but I realized I was being herded toward a tree, and I couldn't exactly do anything about it. My back met the trunk. In the very instant my two kunai flew together to cross just above my head, his one crashed down onto them from a high, two-handed strike. The three knives clashed with a sharp metallic clang, and screeched as they ground together. I clenched my teeth in effort as my enemy's superior strength began to force me downward. I focused chakra to every tenketsu in my body. If I didn't do this quickly, the instant I released the knife lock would be enough time for his kunai to reach me. Kate. I wasn't allowed to begin the jutsu as a foot connected painfully with my unguarded chest, sending me smashing through the tree. I skidded across the ground a good distance, gasping as I sprang to my feet. A kunai was instantly stabbing toward me. With a heavy swing of my arm I swatted it aside by the flat of the blade, freeing it from Orochimaru's hand. Immediately I took the offensive, bombarding him with palm strikes. He dodged each with ease, and in a few seconds flickered away. My eyes located him as he wove a rapid string of seals and brought both hands to the ground. The earth crackled apart and churned dangerously around me. As a fracture split the ground at my feet, I quickly jumped to a solid chunk of earth behind me. It promptly lurched to an angle, and I leapt to a tree trunk. As the tree began to fall from the quake, I returned to the ground. The earth cracked apart beneath my foot, which sank into the opening. I just managed to jump away before the earth shifted. My foot would have been crushed. I stuck to a tree and ran up its trunk even as it fell, and then jumped across to another before it met the ground. Darting between trees, I stayed away from the earth until the jutsu ceased. I sprang to a standing tree just in time to avoid a speeding mass of flames. The fireball chased after me, and I sprinted upward. I jumped to a taller tree and continued, then leapt from branch to climb as I got higher, all the while the fire eating the trees at my heels. Nearing the top and beginning to see light, I built up chakra and launched myself upward to break through the treetops, exploding into the sunlit sky. Still the fireball followed. At the peak of my jump, it had almost reached me. My absolute defense sprang into action as I released chakra and rotated my body. Safe within a firm sphere of chakra, I crashed down through the heart of the fire. The flames dissipated above me, and I landed on a blackened branch. Only when he appeared in the air behind me did I realize I had been careless enough to lose sight of my enemy. Too slow, he hissed viciously, and a heel slammed onto my shoulder. I shot straight to the earth, landing face up with my right hand between my back and the ground. I moaned in pain, seeing the insides of my eyelids as my bloodline's insight faded. I heard him land softly a few yards away. He snickered as he approached. I slowly opened my eyes. I must say, Niji-kun. He was standing to my left, by my feet, and leaning forward slightly to smirk down at me. You're even stronger than I imagined. In one explosive motion, I pushed against the ground with my feet and the hand resting behind my back, violently sweep-kicking his feet from under him. He began to fall forward. Kaiten! I roared savagely, initiating the technique even as I spun to my feet. Once upright I whirled rapidly, and Orochimaru was thrown high into the air. I bent my knees and spread my arms, dropping low into a familiar stance as my Byakugan furiously blazed to life. You're in range! I growled, darting forward. As Orochimaru landed hard on his feet, I was in front of him. Nisho! I jabbed 2 tenketsu sharply. Yanshu! Increasing speed, I hit 4 more. Hashasha! This time, 8. Jurokushu! I whirled and went faster still. Sanju Nisho! My hands were flying now. Hakurokuju Yanshu! At the final strike, I sent him flying. The man's back collided into a tree with a resounding crack. He slid limply to the ground, head slumping forward. Panting heavily, I dropped to my knees and realized just how tired I was. I had been in almost constant high-speed motion for the last 5 or so minutes, not to mention thoroughly exhausting my chakra supply. My Byakugan deactivated as I continued to gasp for breath. It's over. A menacing laugh sent a chill down my spine. No, I croaked weakly, shoving to my feet. I stiffened as I met his eyes, frozen by the sheer unnatural amount of murderous intent rolling off him in waves. You monster, I thought, sinking again to my knees as I shook uncontrollably. Orochimaru strode toward me, stopping 10 yards away. I'm impressed, he drawled with a grin. You are a very strong and beautiful fighter at present, even more so than Uchiha. You are a true master of your bloodline. And your hatred bears so much potential, I can see it in your eyes. How, I whispered, how did you take the village from under our noses? When did you? Curious, are we? Kukukuku, he snickered. Gaara's attack was delayed, but as it turned out he couldn't have arrived at a better time. I ordered my shinobi to release their barrier around Sarutobi-sensei and I in a challenge, a dare, deal with me, the one he regretted not finishing off in the past. Or deal with the sand spirit that was beginning to lay waste to his precious village. The sentimental old fool took off to confront the tailed beast. He ordered all other ninja fighting it to leave the area, and faced it alone. But for that ancient monkey, Enma, he had no summons large enough to combat it. Meanwhile, I set a few buildings and hidden civilian shelters ablaze to provide a sufficient distraction for the other leaf shinobi. Then, decisively forming a new plan, I went to kill him. Sarutobi-sensei was tired and faring poorly. It was easy. I created a smokescreen and slit his throat. Then I stole his face and armor, disposed of the body, and took out the Shikaku by attacking Gaara. By the time the Konoha A and BU arrived, they were easily led to believe he had killed me, and left with no idea what had taken place. From there it was simple as I assumed the role of Hokage. Konoha remained none the wiser. Soon I issued the decree that until further notice, no one was permitted to leave the village, and recalled all shinobi already on missions. Days after, I assigned the majority of the village's jounin a number of classified missions in which they were sent to walk into traps. My troops reported a 100% success rate in capturing them. With the element of surprise on my side, I took care of my fool old friend Jiraiya before he could snoop around. He currently rots in a prison as well. I secured the village council with relative ease, and as we speak, a large force of my minions enters the village. He let up on the killer intent, but I didn't attack, just as he'd known I wouldn't. I see your victory was absolute, destined from the moment you killed Sandaime-sama, I pondered aloud. We haven't the powerful shinobi or influential figures to stage a revolt, nor is the village vulnerable due to addition of your Oto ninja clever. The man smirked. I'm curious. A rhetorical question, Niji-kun? Say I offered to face you seriously, with the vow that should you manage to land a single blow, I would relinquish control over this village. What would you do? You are one of the legendary Sannin of ultimate renown. As a mere genin, I would never stand a chance against your experience. I wouldn't try. Then tell me, why did you even bother fighting me just now? If you had said your intention was to kill me, I wouldn't have bothered. I opted to leave out the fact that I'd also allowed anger to overcome my sense of logic. He shook his head cheerfully, closing his eyes. TSK, TSK, TSK. You realistic child, I like you. You don't fight a hopeless battle, and your intellect is superb, making you all the more desirable. And what exactly do you want of me? I inquired. His smile grew to just slightly bare his teeth. I need someone to help enforce my rule, impose my will. You, and perhaps even your adorable little gang of friends, are perfect for this role. In return for your assistance, I could grant you power. His eyes gleamed as he hissed the word, more power, Niji-kun, than you could even imagine. Why, if you wished it, you could rule the Hyuga. I frowned slightly, resisting a small impulse to lay a hand over the hidden seal on my brow. Destiny forbids it. Dear child, if anyone can change destiny, would not you agree I can, He snickered softly. I'll find a way to remove that pesky seal of yours, if that's where your concerns lie. But the seal was created to be permanent. Does he really think he could? I see the doubt in your eyes, Kakuku. I am here to bring about change, to set things in motion, and I'll do it. A new age is soon to commence in Konohagakure, and if you wish it, in Clan Hyuga as well. But first I need you to help me bring my dream to light. What is your dream? You're sure to find out in time. He paused, running a long tongue across his lips. What do you say, Niji-kun? Will you serve under my command, and assist me in realizing my vision? I hesitated, lowering my gaze in thought. It was not that I didn't love and care for the village. Indeed, I believe this takeover was an unfortunate turn for the worse, but even a fool could have seen the futility of resisting him now, and in doing so quite possibly make things far worse than they could be. Not to mention, the deadly man was clever and powerful. I could not ignore this odd sense of what was it? Reverence? Respect? Yes, the sensible choice was obvious. I raised my head to meet his gaze, steel determination in my eyes. He smirked. A new age? A new age. Excellent, he hissed hungrily, triumph glowing in his face and stance, practically dripping from his voice. But first I have a gift for you. My eyes narrowed. A gift? I gave a quite similar one to Uchiha a few months ago, but yours will be special. I've only recently developed this. You'll be the first to receive it. He formed the hand seal Hitsuji. Oh, and Niji-kun? Yes, Orochimaru-sama? Do try not to die. His neck stretched impossibly, and in the next moment 2 fangs sank into my neck. My mouth fell open with a sharp intake of breath, and my eyes widened considerably. His head withdrew as his neck returned to normal length. A strange sensation came over me, and my stunned eyes drifted questioningly to Orochimaru. What? The genjutsu from before was a paper cut in comparison to the very real pain now blazing through my body. Hands grasping at a point on my lower neck, I dropped to the ground as if struck on the back of the head. Teeth bared in a grimace, I forced an eye to open just enough to look up at him. What eye is he? My neck throbbed. I cried out again, rolling onto my side as I writhed and shook in agony. I pulled myself into a ball, gasping through my teeth, hands tearing at my hair. My bulging eyes vaguely noticed a silver-haired man in glasses now standing beside Orochimaru. You used that seal after all? A distant-sounding voice asked, amused even as I continued to suffer. Kukuku, it can never hurt to have a backup. Before I could begin to wonder what these words meant, a stabbing pain pulsed through me. My body uncurled sharply as I rolled onto my back, eyes snapping shut and mouth flying open as I howled once more. Another wave of pain hit me. When the scream faded, I found a horrible laugh echoing in my ears as the world turned dark. Hinata. Niji and I-san. I froze, and a moment later found myself flat on my back. Someone gasped. Hinata-san. Are you alright? I am so sorry. 2 people helped me to sit up. Hinata, are you okay? Wahei, Hinata. Huh. I shook my head, staring forward blankly. Sorry, I sort of zoned out, I murmured, somehow actually forgetting to stutter. My mind was focused somewhere else. The ominous feeling that had hit me was not unlike the gut-wrenching jolt I'd felt when Hanabi had broken a leg tree climbing 2 years ago. At the same time, this was something greater, stronger, far worse, and I was certain it did not concern my sister. Zoned out in the middle of a spar? Naruto asked. Hey, hello? Anybody home? No, seriously, snap out of it. I started as I noticed a hand waving in front of my face. Sorry, I said, blushing as I faced him. He sighed. Sheesh, Hinata-chan, you scared me for a second there. Anyways, you alright? I realized my nose hurt. Putting a hand below it, I felt a small trickle of blood. Lee and I had been engaged in a light sparring match. Still recovering, I had only just begun very lightly training with the others. Lee was currently repeatedly apologizing, begging for forgiveness, promising to do 600 squat jumps. I'm fine, Lee-kun, really, I said, embarrassed. It's not broken or anything. Okay, but let's take a break now, Naruto said. I looked nervously at him. Should I tell them? Actually, I think we should move on. We've been in one place too long. You may be right, Lee agreed, but you are injured. First, let us take a short break, Hinata-san. I was about to protest when I felt the wetness dripping from my chin. The bleeding was a bit worse than I thought. Okay, I said. And then we need to move? Something isn't right. Niji. Excellent speech, Orochimaru-sama. Byakugan active, I was walking at a leisurely pace at the Godame's right, Kabuto his left. Sasuke, Shino, Ino, and Tenten trailed to complete our formation. Of course he didn't require our protection, but I had been the one to propose we escort him from his speech nonetheless, for the image of willing loyalty and support it would give other villagers. The Sanin's meeting with Hai no Kuni's daimyo had gone well. Though his takeover hostile, the feudal lord knew he could not afford losing the power and protection Konoha provided, and even admitted that the village had been growing alarmingly soft. He was also aware of how dangerous the snake Sanin could be, and how readily he might do something drastic to the villagers for the sake of power. Thus, when all was said and done, Orochimaru had been officially accepted as Hokage. As we passed villagers who were returning to their homes, several stopped their conversations to cast wary looks our way. I paid them no mind. I couldn't care less about how I looked in the eyes of those too foolish to accept the reality of Orochimaru-sama's rule. Thank you, Niji-kun, he said with a grin. Turning his head to glance over his shoulder, he added, and what did you think of my inauguration address, Sasuke-kun? The Uchiha responded, not meeting his gaze. Eyes narrowing, I slowed to fall into step beside him. Is there a problem, Uchiha? He frowned, looking at me from the corner of his eye. If it weren't for him, he whispered, Naruto would still be here. Sandaime-sama would have protected him. Maybe so, but the Sandaime is dead. So is Uzumaki. There is nothing we can do to change that now. Your unruly conduct will solve no problems. He turned his head to glare, and I shot a look back. In a moment he broke his gaze away with a scowl, training sad and angered eyes on the ground. My gaze remained on him as I raised my nose in displeasure. Pathetic. I gasped and raced forward. 10 yards ahead of the Hokage, I turned to face him, grabbed a kunai, drew the arm back behind me and swatted an incoming kunai into the sky. 3 exploding tags went off harmlessly above. I put a hand on Kabuto's shoulder as he tried to rush past. Please allow me, my lord, I said to Orochimaru, scowling as I watched the culprits flee. The man smirked. Friends of yours? I met his eyes. No. Could deal with them as you please. I nodded. Shino! Tenten! I barked, and took off in pursuit. This way I thought, keeping watch on them with the Byakugan as the 3 of us raced over rooftops. Idiots. They think they can escape. We were gaining rapidly. Once we were close, I directed the others in hand signals. Tenten left our formation, while Shino released a swarm of Kakaichu. The 4 were in view, running down an alley. Now! The assailants halted as a dozen shuriken thudded into the ground ahead of them. At the same moment I dropped from the roof to the street directly between Inuzuka and Akimichi, driving palms into their chests as they turned to face me. Kiba hit one wall, and Chuji the other. Haruno was throwing a punch. Her anger changed to fear as I swatted her forearm aside with a palm full of chakra, and I swiftly sealed 4 tenketsu on her body. Then, as the 3 fell, I froze. Hard to keep an eye on shadows in a dark alley, isn't it? Nara remarked with a small smirk. It is, I admitted nonchalantly as Tenten held a kunai to his neck. His eyes widened a fraction. Mendokus, he groaned, releasing me. A hand chopped to the back of the neck promptly sent him to his hands and knees. The other failures were getting up. Stand down, I growled as Shino and Tenten appeared beside me. You're completely surrounded by Kakaichu. They gasped, shuddered, grumbled, and swore respectively upon noticing the parasitic insects that now blanketed the walls around them. I crossed my arms as I deactivated my Kekkei Genkai. Hands on your heads. Now. They complied hesitantly to the stern order, all displaying their idiocy through looks of defiance. When will you learn? I hissed. Did you truly believe you could attempt to assassinate the Hokage and get away with it? Whether you like him or not, he is Hokage now. I ought to arrest you. Well, if it isn't the geniuses turned traitors, Inuzuka spat through bared, sharp teeth, turn against the village for a little extra power and freedom, and suddenly you're top of the world, huh? And why are you wearing those Itaiate? I said, ignoring him. You should have received your new headbands yesterday morning. That makes 2 offenses failures. Ignoring me, are you? He shot back. Orochimaru's little personal guard is too good for us. That what you're saying, traitors? Kiba Shikamaru warned in an undertone. I looked down at the dognin. Traitors? Get with the program. In case you haven't noticed yet, a new age in Konoha has begun. As far as I'm concerned, we are government officers, and you happen to be a rebel gang of traitors. Like heck. He barked, spitting at my feet. Insolent little. I drew back a foot, but Tenten and Shino were on me in a flash, shoving me back. Niji, Tenten whispered, while the Aburaim looked away and shook his head. I sighed. Impudent fools, we're trying to help you. Had Yakushi-san come after you, he would have killed you without a second thought. I had hoped to let you off with a warning, but clearly such a merciful punishment could well spell the deaths of you. So instead I'm placing you under AR. Where Shino whispered. Niji! He gasped, your Byaku? A gray blur shot out of the window beside us with a wild yell. It slammed into Tenten, driving her into me into Shino, and Shino, smack into the wall. Good boy. A smoke grenade was flung to the ground, bursting into a thick, dark mist. Coughing, I picked myself up from the ground. The smoke cleared, and the bunch of losers was nowhere to be seen. They got away. Shino helped Tenten to her feet before examining one of his Kekkei. Not dead asleep. Clever, potent enough to affect insects, but not humans, thus permitting them to escape. He waved an arm and they stirred, woken by his chakra. He recalled the beetles into his jacket sleeves. Do we head after them? He asked simply. I shook my head. Godame-sama told me to deal with them however I wished. We gave them a beating and a warning. For now, that will suffice. I took to the rooftops, and they followed. Niji, Tenten said, do you think Kiba could be right? I mean, Orochimaru's strong, I know. But still, to practically jump to loyally serve him, is it right to just give up on Konoha? I sighed wearily. Tenten, we are still protecting our village. It just so happens that the only way we can protect it is to back down. Fighting back would only mean suffering, and death, which is why it is essential we do not fight back. No other option is available to us. Someday they'll thank us for protecting them from themselves, just not today. Naruto. So, are we getting close? I asked, grabbing a tree branch and swinging off it to another. We'd been traveling around the land of fire the last few weeks, but had never left the country. Hi! According to the map, we should reach the town in at most 5 minutes. Lee was studying a map in his hands, and bafflingly, tree jumping at the same time. He used only his feet, didn't appear to be looking, and still managed to maintain his balance and a pace I was barely keeping up with. Hinata-san, you should put on your sunglasses now, huh? I looked to see Hinata beginning to fall behind. Her face was flushed, and her breathing appeared labored with effort. Hinata, you don't look so good. I called, do you need a break? Just give a straightforward answer. I'm fine, really, it's nothing. Her foot met a branch and slipped off. Hinata! The branch I next reached was demolished by the chakra I released to launch myself back to the one she'd fallen from. My feet adhered to it, and I swung upside down. I reached out, grazing her fingers, and despair clenched my heart as my outstretched hand just missed her own. No! I cried, changing plans and racing down a tree trunk. I'm not going to make it. But I had to make it. She was meters from the earth when a green blur scooped her out of the air. I jumped to the ground beside Lee. Hinata was in his arms, eyes shut and face drawn tight with pain. What's happening? I whispered. Lee gently laid 2 fingers on her neck. She has fainted. Her pulse is weak and rapid, he said, frowning with concern. That's right, I remembered, collapsing to a sitting position as though knocked down by the crushing wave of guilt that attacked me. She's still injured from the Chunin exam. Shino was right. This is my fault, isn't it? Naruto-kun, Lee said firmly, do not think that way. That day, Hinata-san fought with everything she had to stand up for her Nindo, just as we would. But what is important now is that we get to the town. It must have a healer. He lied her down to remove his leg weights. Please take these, he said, handing them to me. The instant he released them in my arms, I was pulled to the ground. Wait. What the heck? Lee picked up Hinata and vanished with speed. I gawked. You've got to be kidding me, I grunted, face red as I lifted the weights. 4 steps later I gave up and dropped them. They buried themselves a half-foot into the ground. I stared blankly into the holes. This is gonna take a while. After 15 minutes of dragging the weights, I finally abandoned them. Lee could come back for them later, but for now I couldn't bear it. I was going crazy worrying about Hinata. A persisting sense of dread was clawing at my gut. No, I scolded myself for even thinking it, she will be alright. She has to. I sprinted into the small town, barely managing to restrain myself to a believable civilian speed as I bolted down the streets. My head swiveled frantically, searching for the healer's place. Frustrated, I darted into a dango shop. I skidded to a halt at the counter, and the old man behind it eyed me suspiciously, no doubt suspecting a troublemaker. Hey! I gasped, do you know where the town healer lives? You don't look injured, he pointed out. No, I'm looking for my friends. Please, do you know where? That depends. Might you happen to be a paying customer? Sure, old man, I am. His smirk vanished with annoyance, but he gave me directions nonetheless. Thanks a billion, Ji-san, I said, gratefully shaking his hand in both of mine before taking off. I'll buy something later, promise. Lee. Enter. I stopped pacing and slid the door open. Hinata was on a bed, her face no longer bearing a look of pain as she slept peacefully. I was struck for not the first time how utterly adorable the younger ninja looked. Whatever the family issues, how Niji could hate and harm such a sweet and kind young flower is beyond me. I shook my head. How is she? I asked the auburn-haired woman beside her. Your friend should be fine, she answered, for the most part. Her pulse has stabilized. She's no longer in danger at the moment. I sighed softly. Thank goodness, arigato gozaimasu, Haruka-san, I said. However, she began, eyes turning stern, it might be helpful if I knew more about her condition. Care to share? This is not good. She is suspicious. It would mean trouble if we were discovered to be shinobi. Meanwhile, I did not know how much she had already deduced on Hinata's condition, but I had to act fast. Well, heart problems run in Hikari-chan's family. I see, Haruka said, and inside I did a victory dance, all too soon. I also find your friend's eye color interesting. She is blind, I said automatically. She murmured, nodding. Her hard eyes never once left me. Oh no, she does not believe me. Haruka was just opening her mouth when Naruto burst into the room. "Tycoon, Hikari-chan, you in here?" I forced myself not to grimace. At least he remembered to use the right names, but with Naruto here I couldn't help but feel the situation was soon to stoop from bad to worse. Of course, I showed no outward sign of my apprehension as I smiled and happily greeted him. "Ah, Kajimaro-kun. This is Haruka-san. She may have saved Hikari-chan's life." To say the very least, I was surprised when Naruto transformed from a loud, boisterous, silly knucklehead into a sincerely humble and polite young man. Power seemed to roll off him in waves. He exuded an aura so great that I felt I would see it should I look hard enough. His fiercely blue eyes, usually playful, held within him both warmth and the utmost seriousness. He could not have been more imposing if he were 10 feet tall. "Is that Naruto-kun?" I found myself wondering, almost awed. He walked up to Haruka. Though not in his path, I stepped back as he passed. Then, stopping before the healer, Naruto sank to his knees and lowered his head. His voice was soft but clear, his words born of honest gratitude. "Arigatou gozaimasu, Haruka-sama." He paused a long moment before sniffling quietly. Thank you so much." There was no doubting that he meant every single word. The healer was dumbstruck, as if she'd been bowed to by a Kage. Indeed, maybe she felt as though she had, and couldn't understand quite why she felt so. "It was nothing, really," she said slowly. I observed the exchange silently. "Naruto-kun, you continued to surprise me." In several moments a small murmur broke the silence. "Hikari-chan is awake," I said. Naruto lifted his head and rose to his feet. A sleeve immediately went to his face. I glimpsed for only the shortest moment the sparkling droplets of water trailing down his cheeks before they were hurriedly wiped away. He turned toward the bed. "Hikari-chan, how do you feel?" he asked softly. Her eyes fluttered open slowly. "And Kajimaro-kun," she whispered. I noticed Haruka walking quietly to the door. "I'll just step out a minute," she said, exiting and sliding the door shut. I was wondering why when before my eyes, Naruto transformed once again, showing yet another side of himself entirely new to me. As his gentle hand tenderly grasped her own, her cheeks were tinted a light pink. Their eyes locked meaningfully for a long moment. This Naruto's eyes contained boundless sorrow, but also compassion, care, and something else. Naruto, I thought, blushing slightly myself as a theory crossed my mind. Just watching the two, touching hands, looking at each other like this, could it be? "Hinata, I thought I'd lost you." "I think it is. How beautiful," I thought, fighting the urge to get emotional. "You must hate me," he said, his gaze drifting to the floor. "Why would I hate you, Naruto-kun? I know this is my fault. You don't have to pretend it's not." "Don't say that, Naruto," she said, quiet but firm. "It's my fault for pushing myself and not telling." "That's not the point," he said, shutting his eyes in shame. "You're precious, very precious to me, Hinata, but I did this to you. If you suffer heart problems the rest of your life, I'll be to blame. How can I ever forgive myself?" His eyes moistened, and finally spilled over. And Naruto-kun, Hinata carefully sat up before clasping her other hand over his. "Please don't cry for Emmy. I'll be fine." I knew how she felt. By nature, Naruto's courage and spirit could invigorate those around him. This was true for Hinata and me especially. As fellow failures, it was all the more moving to see someone like Naruto, someone who fought to be strong and to be recognized, and could succeed on sheer immense confidence, determination, and willpower alone. The blonde didn't realize now how painful it was for us to watch the faltering of his ever-present strength, to see him in such a terribly shaken, self-doubting state. "Hinata-chan," Naruto said. "I'll recover, Naruto-kun. The doctors who examined me back in the village said I would in time, so please don't worry." So you're saying you'll be okay?" "Hi." Naruto sighed in relief before managing a grin. I saw his free hand move to gently stroke hers. "That's good," he said softly as their eyes, a mere 12 inches apart, locked again. "Can I come in?" Haruka slid the door open. Her mouth formed a small O as she observed the scene. A shocked moment later, Naruto and Hinata, both blushing, withdrew their interlaced hands as if burned. They turned away from each other. "Am I interrupting something?" Haruka asked, a grin spreading across her face. The two responded amusingly. Why do you say it like that?" "No, you're not interrupt. I mean, what is there to interrupt, to suggest? Nothing's going on to interrupt, so yeah, ha 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 ha." "No. I am a mean, and no, of C course and not, and nothing." Between Naruto's waving arms, Hinata's beet-red face, and the unintelligible mess their sputtered denials tumbled out in, the scene was almost stupidly comical. "Relax?" Haruka said once she got her laughter under control. "I was kidding." "Oh," said the two embarrassed teens in unison. They sweat dropped. The healer giggled. "I can understand two good friends having an emotional reunion. Anyhow, back to the matter at hand, Kajimaro-san, would you mind telling me how Hikari-chan was injured?" My eyes widened as I realized I had not filled them in on the story. Naruto hesitated briefly and replied, "We had a run-in with this rogue ninja a while back, and—" He trailed off as Haruka smirked, a playful glint showing in her eyes. Really, her face hardened. "So you're telling me 3 children are traveling together, even though one of them apparently suffers hereditary heart problems and was further injured by a rogue ninja? Or is it one or the other, and we're having trouble remembering which?" She waved her arm. And despite being blind, her eyes managed to follow my hand. "Pretty much," Naruto said, and I elbowed him sharply. "Busted," I thought, frowning. Then Haruka surprised us. "Why the looks?" she said, taking a seat. "You look like a dog caught sleeping on the sofa." "Sheesh, I'm not about to go tattling to the authorities." "Why you're not?" Hinata asked. "Ninja or not, you're obviously not any ordinary brats. And to put it bluntly, you don't quite come off as the psychotic rogue type. I don't know what your stories are, but what can I say? I like you." "Wow, well thanks. You're cool," Naruto exclaimed, smiling. He reached an arm back to rub his neck in one of his familiar gestures. "Don't mention it. But what are you doing traveling around with that crazy crisis going on in the leaf? I know Kuni's not so safe anymore." "Crisis?" we gasped. "Well," I gasped. Naruto shouted and Hinata squeaked. Haruka blinked. "You mean you don't know?" "About what?" Someone rapped sharply on the front door. "Taxes!" a harsh voice called. Haruka grimaced. "Oh no." My companions and I exchanged looks. "Haruka-san, what is wrong?" I asked, concerned. She shut her eyes, teeth clenched, not in anger, I realized, but fear. "It's them." Whoever was outside continued pounding on the door, quickly growing impatient. "Open up already!" Haruka stood wordlessly and walked into the front room, sliding the door shut behind her. I looked to Naruto. "Something is not right," I whispered. He nodded. "Hikari, you stay here." That he used a fake name indicated he was uneasy as well, as though he feared someone would hear the hushed whisper. I slid the door open a crack and peeked through cautiously. "Paid a few days ago," Haruka was saying to someone outside. I shifted a bit so I could see him, and stifled a gasp. His headband was adorned by an 8th note. "Sound ninja?" "The tax went up again," he responded gruffly. Haruka stubbornly crossed her arms in a huff. "Well, would you mind telling me where all my tax money is going?" she asked with well-concealed anger. The Otonin frowned. "Actually, I would." "Look, just pay up, lady." "Well, I can't. All these taxes have sucked me dry." "How about that necklace, then?" Her hand flew to cradle the trinket protectively. "It belonged to my mother." "And I'm very sorry to hear that. Hand it over." "No." He scowled. "You know what? I've just about had it with dealing with all you stupid civilians." His hand flashed out to grab her shoulder, and I saw her recoil in pain. The shinobi drew back a fist. "Not on my watch," I thought, shooting from my hiding place to drive a fist into his chest. He crashed into the wall of a house across the street. "T-Tai?" Haruka gasped behind me, shocked. The shinobi looked at me, bewildered and dazed. Who in the... Do you not know better than to strike civilians, and women at that?" I paused, and with great agony left out my introduction, "will not allow such conduct." "Captain?" As the man slumped forward, unconscious, a second ninja came running down the street from another house. "You little runt!" he growled, charging with a kunai drawn. I dashed toward him. "Senpai!" I yelled, solidly sweeping a kick at his shins. As he went flying past me, his momentum brought his face straight into Naruto's striking fist. He flew past me once more. "Hope he's got a good dentist," Naruto muttered, rubbing his knuckles as he looked ponderingly at the foreign shinobi. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked Haruka. The woman was ghostly pale. "Oh dear, you shouldn't have done that." She sprang to her feet and ripped off a necklace. "Hurry! Steal something from them," she said as she rushed inside to toss it under a loose floorboard. "What? Why?" So that you weren't helping me, you were looting them. I understood and raced to snatch the leader's shuriken holster and kunai pouch. Naruto did the same and then rifled through a bag the younger Oto ninja had, taking some supplies. His eyes widened a fraction, and then with a grin he held out a pair of scrolls. Score! What? He asked as I shot him a look. Their sound, might as well, he said, and I sighed. As I re-entered Haruka's house and went into the side room, a small paper bag was thrust into my arms. Medicine for Hikari-chan, the healer clarified. I nodded. Thank you, I said, and we quickly loaded the additional supplies into my backpack. Especially because anyone else may have turned us in for a reward straight away. Hey, Naruto asked, what are you doing? I zipped the bag shut and turned to see Haruka stir half a spoonful of powder into a glass of water. It'll put me to sleep for 10 minutes, she explained. You guys broke in through the back window, knocked us all unconscious, and then stole their supplies and my necklace. She winked. Smart, Naruto said as he helped Hinata up. She put an arm around his shoulders for support. Thank you again for everything, I said. Taking a few Rio notes from my pocket, I placed them on the counter. For your taxes. It is the least we can do. Haruka smiled. Safe travels, she said, tipping her glass as if in a toast before downing the water. She set the glass down on the counter, and promptly collapsed. I caught her, carrying her to the front room and gently lying her down by the door. Returning to the side room, I hurriedly put on my backpack. Ready? I asked the others. Hinata nodded. Let's go, Naruto said. I opened the window that we'd broken through and jumped out. They followed, and we took off. A minute after leaving the town, we were moving through forests at high speed. We would have liked to stay to hear about the crisis that was apparently devastating the Leaf, to learn then of the conspiracy that had overtaken our home, or to ask why on earth Sound Ninja were collecting taxes in Fire Country towns. Though I did not know it at the moment, Hinata was wondering how it was possible that Haruka had utilized a basic medical ninjutsu to help her, and contemplating the theory that the sensation had merely been the imagination of her half-conscious mind. Had we been able to stay, we would have learned then of the death of Sandaime-sama and the rise of a tyrant, of the recent death of Haruka's husband at the hands of Sound Shinobi tasked with neutralizing the threat of former Leaf Ninja who had moved from the main village, and that Haruka herself knew a handful of simple medical ninja techniques, which she kept secret for fear of being found out, considered a ninja, and made to share her late husband's fate, which happened to be the source of her initial distrust toward us. But for now, all of this was to remain, tormentingly, up to our imaginations. What we did know with all certainty was that we had to get away from there, and we had to do it fast. Niji. I am possible, the young, black-haired Chunin croaked. He looked up at me with an odd fear in his eyes. How are you so strong? You haven't even begun to see the full extent of the power Orochimaru-sama has granted me. Even so, my strength pales infinitely in comparison to his own, a mere insignificant pebble at the foot of a great mountain. Do you not understand? At any moment, he could kill us all as he originally desired, but he has mercifully decided to rule us instead. I assure you, if you do not join, you will die. He cringed. The remaining defiance in his eyes faltered, beginning to be overcome by fear. But he began hesitantly, but Konoha is dead. I am sorry to say that this is simple reality. Ever simple, cold, and unforgiving, so what is your choice? He looked away. I don't understand why. You were rookie of your year, the best new genin, a perfect ninja, the prodigy everyone was talking about. I thought you, of all people, were one of us. I still am serving the village. As a shinobi of the village, I'm trying to protect you. So will you serve your comrades as well? Or keep fighting to get yourself and possibly others killed? He sighed in defeat and slowly got to his knees. I give in. I smirked. Wise man. Now take off that emblem of treason and run your kunai through it. He reluctantly removed his hitite. He gazed at it a long moment before, grimacing with self-resentment, he slashed through the leaf mark. Multiple times, I added, and he gave a look of such great disbelief that you would think I were requesting he stab himself. I raised an eyebrow. After all, what did a mere insignia matter? Do it with pride, I spat, quickly growing impatient. He trembled with tortured dismay. Then, grinding his teeth, he ran his knife in a furious blur across the symbol 5 times more. I pledge. Louder, the order came out in a furious growl. He's sounding like Hinata. I pledge undying loyalty and allegiance to Godame-sama, he said firmly, pale with fear. Judging from his reaction, my eyes must have changed again. I really had to work on that. He handed over the ruined headband, and I stowed it away in the bag I'd been carrying all day. It clattered against other defaced Hittite. And your friends? I asked, eyeing the two unconscious Chunin he'd ambushed me with. He calmed a bit, and I knew my eyes had returned to normal. I'm the one who talked them into it in the first place. They'll report to the tower to take the oath in the morning. Very good, I said with a slight nod of approval. Wear your new headband with pride. I activated my Byakugan and flickered away. My penetrating gaze scanned buildings as I raced through the streets. There, I thought as I sighted 6 nervous-looking older genin, all wearing Konoha headbands, huddled around a table. They were probably another few of the unsure ones, holding on to their headbands and wavering on the decision of whether or not to turn them in, as had been requested by the Hokage a week ago. Unsurprisingly, only a small fraction of the village's ninja had complied since that request, so here I was now, tasked with gathering more support for the Sannin. Masking my presence, I halted before the door. A good scare may be helpful, however. I had just drawn in a leg to kick the door in when a hawk's cry pierced the silence of the village. I looked up. A summons. I guess it is getting late. I'll take care of them tomorrow. I headed for the Hokage tower. Kabuto sat beside Orochimaru at the desk, in a spot not long ago frequently occupied by Yumino Irika. When I entered, the silver-haired man was examining the back of a slashed headband's metal plate for a shinobi identification number. I knew. He rifled through a stack of papers, moved his finger down a page until he found the match, and checked off the ninja with a pen before discarding the forehead protector into a small pile on the floor. Orochimaru-sama, I greeted the Godame with a nod as I approached. Turning to Kabuto, I dumped the contents of the bag I'd been carrying over my shoulder. Dozens of mutilated leaf headbands clattered onto the desk. The former spy gaped, muttering more in surprise than complaint, just when I thought I was almost done. Excellent work, Orochimaru mused with a grin, and here you are, completely unscathed. I bowed, and was about to turn to leave when Kabuto's hand rested on my shoulder. He lowered his head in sympathy, gazing at me over the rims of his glasses. Hard day? He asked with the slightest smirk. Not in the least, Yakushi-san. Why do you ask? Amazing. Staying out the longest and collecting more than twice what the 4 others did combined. You sure take the overthrowing of your home village well, and killing what's left of it, too. Orochimaru chuckled. You fear for his psychological health? I told you, Kabuto, our dear Nijikuin is a very special child. I'm not surprised to find he possesses natural talents for this. I am happy to be of service to you, my lord. My tone was controlled and respectful, but not at all greatly humble. They all gave in willingly, I presume? Of course, Godame-sama. And the ones you couldn't break, did you kill them? I shook my head. I did not, I answered bitterly, recalling fierce encounter with, unsuccessful ambush by, the failures a few hours ago. It wasn't a reproach, he said with a grin. You may deal with them in whatever way you wish. Yes, sir. Very well, then you are dismissed. Hanabi. I kicked a pebble lazily as I continued to walk. It danced and skittered further down the walkway that ran along the buildings lining the courtyard. With Chichiyui and Nei-chan gone, and everything that was going on in the village, I hardly left my room anymore, except for meals and other necessities. It didn't feel safe anymore. The rest of the Hyuga had taken to glowering at me as I passed, and though I refused to show it, I couldn't help the unnerved sense of danger that pounded inside whenever I was out on the grounds. Whenever I was around them, my breath became tight with nervousness, and I dreaded that they might attack me at the smallest provocation. Still, confining myself to my room for so much of each day was maddening, not to mention physically unhealthy. For this reason I made an effort to finish dinner, which I did alone and in a far corner of the room, glancing about in unease as looks and harsh-sounding whispers were cast my way, quickly, so I could stroll the grounds in peace while most of the clan was still eating. I felt very much alone. I hope wherever she is, Nei-chan isn't alone. Entertaining the idea that by some microscopic chance my sister had indeed happened to run into some friends, I kicked the stone again, and a few moments later it returned to me. I looked up and scowled as I met the eyes of the last person I wanted to see. Hello, Hanabi, Niji said coolly. An alarm went off in my head at the lack of the honorific. Nonetheless, I remained calm and gave a simple hello before continuing to walk with my eyes trained past him. I haven't seen you around lately, he went on as I walked by him. I grunted, shrugging my shoulders in response. I was determined to avoid whatever confrontation he was surely intent on luring me into. I'm curious, he began, and I could just barely hear his bare feet on the smooth wood as he turned around to face me. Is it true that Hinata defeated you, or was that merely another strand among the lies that were woven into your clever little story? I stopped. Yes, it's true. I felt that were it not so wildly beyond his nature, he would be roaring with cold laughter. How? No jukin, no tricks, nothing. Just one simple fist to the gut. Incredible. You must really be pathetic. Maybe. I turned my head to look at him out of the corner of my eye. Or perhaps Hinata-chan was merely too strong. I think I said, continuing to walk, she's stronger than we know. And stronger than she knows. I heard my cousin snort as I continued on my way. Please. You know she's out there lying dead somewhere right now. With greater speed than I would have thought I was capable of, I closed the distance between us. He deflected the palm strike with his forearm. Touchy, aren't we? He remarked with a raised eyebrow. Take that back. No, he said with a smirk. I said take it back. My forehead was flicked sharply, and I jumped back with a yelp. Niji expressionlessly held my glare of pure, unadulterated rage for a moment, and then tucked an arm behind his back. A malevolently playful smirk tugged at his lips as he beckoned with his left hand. Come. Growling at the insult in his actions, all thoughts of avoiding confrontation were forgotten as I raced toward him. He shifted to dodge my first palm strike, and again to avoid the second. At the third strike he swatted my forearm aside, and my other hand shot in. He was too fast. The one hand he was using flashed in a fist, stinging my cheek. The force spun me on heel. I landed on my front, facing away from him. Do you understand now? You are not superior. All of you are weak at heart because you cheat your strength from mere control over a cursed seal. Take it be back, I whispered, getting to my knees. Nei-chan is alive, take it back. My Byakugan activated as I launched myself at him. He stepped back quickly, and my palm met only air. I struck out as fast as I could in a blind rage, and he dodged and blocked easily, still wearing his wicked smirk. At one of my attacks he caught my wrist carelessly. With the captured hand I was able to grab his own arm as I quickly lunged forward with another strike. Got you! A heel sharply thrust itself into my belly, cleanly reversing my dash and knocking the wind out of me. My feet slid back a yard before I fell to my knees, curling over in pain. Did you forget I have feet? He taunted as I coughed weakly. Shut up, I hissed, shakily forcing myself to my feet. Nei-chan is alive, you'll see. She'll return someday, and when she does she'll be stronger than you. Why can't you simply face reality? There's no way she will survive, and she was simply never destined to surpass me. If Hinata by some chance is not dead already, she is still ultimately doomed to fail. That's not true, I cried, running at him. Niji blurred with speed, and though my eyes kept up with him, my body could not. With a cry of wake up, a palm connected with my sternum. The fact that should have been obvious struck twice as hard as the blow. He had been toying with me before. My mouth fell open as I was sent flying to land several yards away. It was at that point, I think, that we both realized the remarkable likeness the moment bore to a scene from weeks ago. Like older sister, like younger. Niji sighed. I would not advise following in Hinata's footsteps, Hanabi. She is dead for a reason. Do not carry on her ways. Shaking his head in disdain, he turned and left. A full minute later I rolled onto my side, stifling a gasp of pain. Wincing, I slowly got up and grinned. You're wrong there, dear Nii-san. You're wrong. Wherever she is, Nei-chan is alive. Naruto. The clone in front of me burst at a heavy strike. Drawing back a fist, I lunged through the smokescreen it had created, ducking under the arm that had destroyed the doppelganger. My opponent neatly dodged the punch and grabbed my arm. Whirling, he flipped me over himself in a throwing move, preparing to slam my back against the ground. As I passed above him, the hand of the arm he held stuck out 2 fingers. My other arm reached to it, swiftly completing a cross-hand seal with 2 more fingers. Kaige Bunshin no Jutsu. The shadow clone appeared facing away, and in position to catch my ankles in the air to halt the throw. As I grabbed the opponent's arm with my free hand, the clone pulled me forward, and the enemy was pulled off his feet. Arcing my back backward as the clone crouched down and pulled me, I bent my knees. Then, still in the clone's hold, I snapped my body forward with all my strength. I released my foe to hurl him at a tree. He flipped expertly so that his feet met the trunk, and backflipped gracefully to the ground. The moment his feet met the snow-powdered earth, he whirled to face me, a kunai knife locking with my own with a sharp metallic clang. A new clone, created in the split second before the knives had met, held his replicated blade to the opponent's neck from behind. How was that? I panted with a determined grin. Not bad, he said with a smirk of his own, barely winded. You are getting faster. I dispelled the clones, and Lee and I broke out of the knife lock. I slipped the blunted kunai back into my sleeve. You almost had me beat plenty of times too, bushy brow. True, but each time you managed to improvise a timely and effective counterattack. Your taijutsu's improvement has truly been spectacular. Saying my taijutsu had improved, I admit, wasn't saying much. I had never utilized any particular style, but in our 3 or so weeks together I had honed my usage of shadow clones so that they could effectively assist in my wild, freestyle approach. Congratulations, Naruto-kun, Hinata said with a small smile as she approached, as this marked my first victory over Lee in a spar. Do you need a break? Lee asked me, since our 4-minute match had been particularly intense. No way! I exclaimed, patting my chest with a fist. I could keep at this pace for hours, believe it! Let's go on while I'm warmed up. The older genin smiled blindingly. That is the spirit! How very youthful of you, Naruto-kun. It is great to hear you sounding like your old self again, he said, flashing a thumbs up before moving off to the side. Hinata and I faced off, she in her gentle fist stance and I with my knees bent, fingers already crossed in the seal. Ready? I asked. Hi. Alright, let's go. I charged, immediately creating 2 shadow clones on either side of me. Already forming a plan, I substituted unnoticeably with the replication on my left, switching places with it. Hinata went through 3 quick hand seals. Why does that look so familiar? She raced toward me, and still nothing had happened. Then, when we were astride each apart, more than a dozen copies sprang from her. I jumped back with a startled cry, creating 10 more clones on instinct. Bunshin! I realized as the clones stormed my shadow clones, launching pretend attacks to throw us off. Find the real one, I ordered. This one's fake. She's an illusion, too. This one, too. I know. Which one is leaving footprints in the snow? Good idea. What the? Hold up. None of them are real? Then where is she? Amid the chaos, a Kage Bunshin running past me a few yards away suddenly swept out its arm, without even looking. The blunt tip of a kunai bounced off my chest. My jaw dropped. What the why? The traitor shadow clone was enveloped in a puff of smoke, and Hinata was left standing in its place. Her bloodline faded. I get it, I said as I dispelled the doppelgangers, while we ran around confused. You used the transformation technique to disguise yourself as a shadow clone. That was really smart, Hinata-chan. Her cheeks reddened slightly, and she poked her fingers together. Thank you, Naruto-kun, she mumbled with a smile. Lee chuckled as he walked up. It looks like you still cannot outsmart Hinata-san, huh, Naruto? He jeered good-naturedly. In such a situation, it would have been wise to dispel your clones, or replace with your replications to keep the enemy guessing which was the real you. If you stand in one place giving orders, it becomes rather obvious. Using more clones than you can count at a glance can clearly have its disadvantages. Yeah, I get it, I said as I retrieved Hinata's dulled practice kunai and handed it to her. Just wait, I said, next time I'll win. She blushed again with a slight smile. We'll see. The sparring rotation we concluded our daily training with, the pointers and compliments, the light-hearted, competitive joking and jeering, was all routine by now. We weren't sure how much we could improve without a teacher, but so far we were doing pretty well considering. I was about to move aside for Lee and Hinata, but the taijutsu specialist glanced at the sky and shook his head. It is beginning to get dark. Let us call it a day. He held Hinata and me around the shoulders before enthusiastically exclaiming, We have progressed far today, my youthful friends. Can you feel it? This is the springtime of youth. Yeah, bushy brow, we feel it. Excellent. Let us work 3 times as hard tomorrow. Yeah? And why are we walking back to camp when we could be putting in some sprinting? He released us and was gone in a flash, almost immediately appearing in our light camp 20 yards away and waving. Is he for real? I asked, sweat dropping. Hinata shrugged. Wait. We can't lose to him, alright? As she took off sprinting as well, I mentally smacked myself. Why didn't I think of that first? I whined and followed as fast as I could. I shuddered as a chilled breeze drifted in. I unwound a long scarf a few rounds from my neck, securing it instead around my bare forehead. Man, I miss my hataite, I grumbled. A few weeks ago I had worn it every waking hour with pride, but of course, being missing Nin, the 3 of us couldn't represent Konoha by wearing our hataite. At the same time, I especially was appalled by the idea of slashing Irika-sensei's headband, or any leaf mark, for that matter, as was unofficial custom. Yes, I would much rather not wear the headband at all than scar it with the mark of rogue ninja. So, rather than symbolically breaking all ties to Konoha, we had simply stored our Hittite away in the bottom of Lee's backpack, leaving them unmarked with the promise that we remained loyal and would someday return. After weeks away, we all looked different now. As we'd all fled the village at short notice, the only clothes in our possession were what had been on our backs when we'd left. The week's worth from Lee had quickly gathered, and what little we'd bought from towns with money from his short notice mission backpack. Hinata wore the grayish-black Hyuga training outfit, a dark blue, GI-like shirt over it reaching to her mid-thighs. On our now rare stops in town she donned a pair of sunglasses to conceal her white eyes. I had on a simple light brown jacket over a dingy white sweater, and light gray, almost white long pants. 2 square-shaped bandages, just large enough to hide my whisker marks, adorned my cheeks. Lee was dressed in faded black pants and a hideous green turtleneck sweater. All 3 of us had wrapped our sandals in strips of cloth, both to keep cold from entering through the open toes of the shoes and to make them unrecognizable as ninja sandals. Our clothes were neither fancy nor stylish, but they served their purpose. We appeared not to be shinobi, but simply 3 poor young travelers. Lee's hair had, slowly but surely, lost both its shine and bowl-cut form he had once so carefully maintained, now hanging messy and slightly longer. His neglected eyebrows, which had been groomed as meticulously as his hair when he was in the village, were now untidy, pointing in all directions. Hinata's hair had also lost its gloss, while my own blonde hair, the others said, was messier than usual. Currently we were huddled together by our campfire, a blanket draped across our shoulders as we ate. Another breeze rolled by as I was about to take a bite, and I dropped my fish at the resulting shudder. Dang it! I protested, picking up the stick it was speared on. Why'd we have to come here again? Lee sighed. Remember, we are missing Nin? Guy-sensei taught my team that when being pursued, one should do what is least expected. If the village sends trackers after us, the last place they will expect to find us is the remote northernmost edges of Haino Kuni, especially with winter coming on. Most leaf shinobi, unaccustomed to it, hate cold weather. You think? And the snow may help to cover our trail as well. I grumbled a bit, but I suppose in truth I agreed. The days were mild, the nights a bit harsher but bearable, and putting up with it was worth the safety. We had just finished eating when a chilly wind blasted against our backs, killing the dying fire instantly. "Oh, looks like it's starting to snow again," I said through chattering teeth. We were soon hurrying into the small cave we were camping in. Niji. My brothers and sisters, I began, bowing my head a moment, I take it you all know why I called you here. Many of the dozens of Hyuga assembled in the large, candlelit room exchanged uncertain glances. Hyuga Hitode, a man 4 years my senior, spoke. With all due respect, we know exactly what you're thinking. We're just not so sure about it. What reason do we have not to? All but one member of the main house has been imprisoned. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the chance we've been waiting for. We must act now. What's wrong? Scared to step out of line even in their absence? It would appear the main house has trained us well. And how do you propose we go about breaking from their rule? Hyuga Haruna snapped. Every powerful figure in the clan was captured at that false council meeting. Do you think we alone even know how to officially reform the clan? Besides, what good can come of refusing to serve the main family? They will surely be released at some point, and the minute they learn of it we will be punished severely. Why, if they even knew of this meeting, never mind the treacherous matter we're discussing, they would. Crossing my arms and shutting my eyes, I laughed softly. She trailed off, and an unnerved silence fell in the room. I bared my teeth in a grin as I continued to chuckle. That's just it, I said as I opened my eyes. The seal will not be a problem. What are you saying? She asked as whispers of doubt arose. Orochimaru-sama is working on finding a way to remove my seal. Once he perfects it, he will remove all of your seals as well, so long as you swear loyalty to him as your Hokage. Then we can overpower the cowards with ease. Niji, the elderly hero barked, you dare suggest that we betray Konoha? I met his eyes squarely. Yes. His callous fist thudded onto the floor in outrage. That isn't an option. Have you no Hyuga pride? We are the village's oldest and most honorable family. 4 generations our valor and strength has defended this place, through peacetime and crises. Nothing good can come of fighting now, I said firmly. You would prefer to die fighting, correct? Only a fool would wish for such. You tell me what's more important, dying a pointless death, or living to defend what remains of the village. The man looked away, gritting his teeth. The choice is simple. You want to serve the village? If we fight, we will die. If we die, we will be unable to protect the villagers, therefore becoming useless to the village, unable to carry out our duty. Very well, he growled. However, I do not approve of accepting Orochimaru's aid in our clan affairs. Doing so would be cowardly. Godame-sama will either fight our battle nor become involved in clan affairs. Don't you see? A new age will soon begin within Clan Hyuga. He will merely spur it into motion, leveling the battlefield by relieving us of these wretched seals. Then, the fools will cower before us. We will create a new Hyuga clan, a clan with no main house to oppress us. And I assume you intend to be our leader? Of course, I answered with a smirk. I will lead with members of the branch council as advisors. Then, on my 16th birthday, I will officially assume the role of clan leader. Hold on 1 second. Hyuga Hitori said angrily, standing. Who said you could be leader? You think becoming that tyrant's loyal little puppy dog makes you king of the world? I frowned. I would think it only natural that the strongest remaining member of the clan leads it. The room's inhabitants stared incredulously at my insinuation for a long moment. Then Hitori howled with laughter. You're kidding me. Maybe I ought to knock some sense into you. Sure, you're gifted. His face became serious. But do you honestly think you're the strongest? Eyes closed, I stood, a sadistic smirk sliding across my face as I snickered softly once more. Is that a challenge? I asked, opening my eyes. Hitori flinched, his breath catching as he took the full force of my gaze, and the entire room tensed. Answer me, Hitori, I gently reminded the now pale-faced man. No, it's not, my apologies, sir. I exposed my teeth with a grin. For your sake, I am very glad to hear that. I sat down. Trembling, the large man collapsed back to the ground, looking more or less like a fearful whipped dog. Child, Hiro gasped, awestruck as all the Hyuga who had witnessed. Your eyes, what is the meaning of? The meaning of it is irrelevant. I have power, something the branch can wield a great deal of very soon. So, will you serve me, and swear allegiance to Godame-sama? The shaken clansmen exchanged looks. I grinned as, first one by one, and then several each moment, they all bowed to me. You have our support, Lord Niji, a number of voices chorused in a murmur. Good, I said, nodding. Now remove your hitate. The shinobi passed around kunai, slashing their Konoha headbands. When finished, they all took the oath together. Even the civilian members of the clan, though not required, swore their allegiance. As the ritual was completed, the large majority who had brought their new headbands as I'd requested donned them. In the morning I will go inform the imprisoned branch Hyuga of our revolt, and persuade them to pledge loyalty as well. When they do, they will be released. 15-year-old Hayuki spoke hesitantly. But what about Hayashi? Hayashi? At my look, she left off the honorific with painful difficulty. If he decides to take the oath, he will be freed as well. And if he learns of this before we lose our cursed seals. If Hayashi gets in my way, I will kill him. If anyone felt at the moment even the slightest doubt I was capable of doing this, they didn't show it. Now, I said, someone please teach our little rat a lesson. I activated my Byakugan as Hanabi jumped in surprise 20 meters away. As a few Hyuga raced from the room, her mouth formed a very foul word indeed. Must be something she picked up from Inuzuka. Hanabi. My body was racked with stifled sobs as I dragged my feet up to the doorstep. I raised a heavy arm, a trembling hand, and knocked. A dog started barking inside the house. A moment later I heard nails scrabbling at the other side of the door. Oh Kami, please let him answer, please. However hard I tried, I was helpless in the struggle to keep my mind off of it. There was blood. Blood. So much. On me. On my skin. And some of it. The blood. It wasn't even mine. My stomach lurched sickeningly, but it had already been emptied. The dog had stopped scratching at the door. My legs gave, and I leaned into the door for support. Sniffling, I choked back a wail of distress and pain as I pounded the wood feebly, whimpering with a sob at every knock. I struck weaker and weaker, until eventually my shaking hand rested against the door. My fragile form shuddered as I bawled quietly in despair. Okay, I'm up already, Akuma. I fell as the door opened, and the boy caught me against himself. Hanabi-chan? He gasped, shocked. Kiba-san, I whispered, and fainted. Hinata. 96. I forced my arms to straighten. 97. I bent and straightened them again, pushing myself up. 98. 99. I was bending my arms when it struck like a sledgehammer. Needless to say, I collapsed. Emoto-chan. Hanabi, I whispered, getting up. Something had happened to Hanabi. Could I be imagining it? I wasn't sure. I found myself staring at nothing in particular as I gazed at the starlit night sky to the south. I could feel it. There was something dark, ominous, that I could sense just by looking in the direction of the village. I wondered for far from the first time just what was happening to my former home. I shook my head. Whatever it might be, whether I was imagining things or not, I was much too far away to do anything about it now. Still trying to shake a sense of dread, I continued training. I had been sneaking away from camp almost every night for a while now. This evening, I had left when the wind and snow let up. First, I would spend an hour doing various exercises and practicing juken forms, after which I would spend an hour meditating. Chakra is formed through a combination of the physical energy of the body and the spiritual energy from the mind. If I can work hard enough and focus on strengthening both, I should be able to build my chakra supply faster. Though I could often outmaneuver Naruto, and sometimes evenly in spars, I knew for a fact that I was the weakest of the three of us. My lack of stamina in comparison to the two of them was at the point of embarrassing. I didn't want to disappoint them or go back on any of our promises, which was why I was glad to do the extra work to try to improve my weak points. I sat down in front of a tall pine tree, locked my gloved hands in a seal, closed my eyes, and focused. I did not once open my eyes until my internal clock told me an hour had passed. I stood and stretched for a minute before moving on to the third and shortest part of my nightly training. I formed a cross with 2 fingers of each hand and closed my eyes to brace myself. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The sensation of being ripped in two still hit me hard. I wobbled as exactly one half of my chakra was unpleasantly wrenched away, and the doppelganger that popped into existence steadied me. Even with practice, how Naruto could form dozens of shadow clones with ease and do it in the heat of battle was beyond me. When I caught my breath, I faced off with the shadow clone. When I use the J-jutsu, do all you see can to defend, I said, activating my Byakugan. One might find it strange that I stuttered while addressing my own shadow clone, but even if it was a copy of myself, and perhaps for that very reason, I felt strange giving it orders. The clone nodded, settling into a stance, and I attacked first. As my opponent's speed and skill were virtually equivalent to my own, it took a while to find an opening. Even so, after a minute I hooked her ankle with my own as we were exchanging strikes. I pulled her off balance, and she stumbled back. There. I swiftly dropped into a new stance, my feet spaced apart, and arms spread wide, left hand near the ground at my lead foot and right in the air behind me. Hack Sanjuni Sho, I declared, dashing forward. 2 palms, I cried, jabbing 2 points. I can see it. 4 palms. Just a bit, I can see the tenketsu. 8 palms. I continued the barrage. 16 palms. I moved in a blur, forcing the clone back. 32 palms. I gasped, moving faster. Can I do it? I had to try. 60 F. The clone ground her teeth and swatted my arm aside before sending the heel of her palm into my chest. I reeled 2 steps and saw the Kage Bunshin stagger back and begin to fall, coughing while vanishing in smoke. The Kage Bunshin's memories rushed to me, and I sat down to think. I see. There was no change in speed between 32 and 64. The speed increase with each level of the move was crucial to keep the opponent at bay. If a steady attack rhythm was dragged out long enough, any foe could escape with enough effort. From what the clone had felt, I had, if anything, gotten slower after completing 32 strikes. To be unable to complete Hack Rokuji Yanshu, is my stamina really so poor? I wondered, unconsciously placing a hand over my still pounding heart. No, I realized, it's hardly a stamina problem alone. Even at top condition I probably couldn't have done it. The main issue is that I simply haven't attained the level of speed required for the technique. But how long would it take to overcome that? I sighed. It all looks like I still have a long way to go. Niji. The 2 Oto-chunin stepped aside wordlessly as I approached, nodding in greeting. I opened the large door. Good morning, Orochimaru-sama. My apologies for arriving late. Hello, Niji-kun, and what might that be? He asked, eyeing the bag slung over my shoulder. I had a feeling that both he and Kabuto had an idea, but a touch of disbelief was visible even in the Sannin's slitted eyes. I answered by dumping the bag. Almost as many scarred Hittite as I'd collected yesterday tumbled onto the desk. Clan Hyuga is ours, I declared, bowing my head. Wonderful, Orochimaru hissed, what a pleasant surprise. Kabuto's mouth was hanging open as he stared at the pile of headbands. His gaze flew to me, his teeth clenched as his eyes widened ever so slightly as if in fearful suspicion. A sense of highly unnerved awe radiated from his face as he scrutinized my own. His eyes bored into mine, almost desperately hoping to find some well-hidden trace of remorse, pain, self-loathing that quite simply wasn't there. It took him only a moment to realize he wasn't about to find anything. Slightly shaken, he took a deep breath and collected himself. "You're not like the others." I bowed slightly at the waist. "If you are just now learning this, Yakushi-san, I'm afraid you have sorely underestimated me." He shook his head with a smirk. "You're so different from them it's almost disturbing. Just what kind of a leaf ninja were you?" I grinned. "The kind that other leaf ninja didn't like very much." "Kakuku, of course such weak fools failed to recognize your genius," Orochimaru said. "But I see you as an invaluable shinobi. You truly have provided the best aid I could ask for in transforming this village." "Again, milord, I am happy to be of service." He stood, his hand resting on my shoulder as he smiled. "You're doing quite well, Niji-kun. Take today off and rest." I would have preferred to continue yesterday's assignment, but I recognized an order. "Very well, Godame-sama. Thank you. However, there is something important I've been meaning to take care of in the village." "HM? I'd like to conduct an investigation of sorts." The walk there was uneventful. As usual, I kept an eye out for troublemakers, graffitists, ambushes, and the like. Conversations were as always hushed as I passed, most villagers glowering warily. However, I was mildly surprised to find that some shinobi and civilians alike began, though ever wary, to nod and give a polite, brief greeting. I would nod back slightly as I continued on my way. I reached my destination and observed the pile of wreckage, a single demolished building amidst others in fairly good condition. It had once stood a 2-story house, now a broken second floor rested far closer to the first than it was ever designed to, crumbled and charred remains of roof tiles lying messily over it. Much scorched debris was still strewn about the former building, though most of it had been cleared away. I scanned the area, and quickly a wire of 9 ornate lanterns nearby caught my eye. I flickered up to one of the buildings it was strung between for a closer look. The line drooped downward more than was normal, as though much weight had pulled down on it. A large gap between lanterns showed that one was curiously missing near the middle. On closer inspection I found the wire was of high quality, strong and durable, yet it had been stretched and very nearly snapped. This was more than the work of wind. I looked around, and in a moment my eyes landed on the security camera of a shop further down the street. Smirking at my luck, I jumped to land lightly on the ground. My knuckles rapped above the closed sign adorning the door. I crossed my arms as I waited. The door opened. "Sorry, we don't open for 15, he gasped, his eyes widening in surprise. "Oh, Officer Hyuga-san, sir, gee, good morning, is there a problem?" I raised an eyebrow. "In fact, no. Should there be a problem?" "What? No, and not from me," he said, forcing a smile. "I'm completely loyal to New." "Save it. Whatever you're up to doesn't concern me now. I would like to see your security tapes from exactly 29 days ago." "Oh, of course, sir," the middle-aged man stammered, "please come in." I entered, and waited as he went through another door. Promptly he returned to the room, carrying 3 tapes. Any specific time frame?" "Between 2 and 3 a.m., when that house was paper-bombed." I pointed at it through the glass windows. He selected one of the videotapes and popped it into the VCR of a little-used old television set on a stand in one corner. I walked up to him. "Tell me," I asked as he fiddled with the buttons on the ancient-looking device, "do you ever look over these tapes?" "Not unless something's been stolen." I nodded as a black and white picture lit up the screen. He stood and stepped back, smearing dusty fingers on his apron. The time, 12 a.m., was displayed in one corner of the screen. I quickly found in the image the back of a 2-story house not far away. Closer, and near the top of the screen, hung a barely sloped wire of 10 lanterns. "Would you like a cup of tea, Hyuga-san?" the shop owner asked hesitantly as my focused gaze examined the scene. "Please," I answered, kneeling to push the fast-forward button. Several minutes passed as I waited, watching the video speed through the night. Few villagers crossed the screen, and occasionally a dog or bird passed by. Knowing better than to really drink it, I pretended to sip my tea patiently, eyes not leaving the television. Then, when the corner read 2:16 a.m., Lee's house exploded. My finger punched the play button. I saw 2 figures in the air, suddenly joined by 14 more to form a chain, the head of which grasped a line of wire, knocking a lantern off of it in the process. The human chain swung forward, dragging the wire down with weight, and the people came rapidly into focus. Then they shot upward to vanish into the top edge of the screen, leaving the camera's range before undoubtedly soaring over the shop. The shadow clones still on screen vanished. I rewound the tape a moment, played it, and then paused the instant the ones at the end of the chain were nearest. And there they were. Eyes big and mouths frozen open in screams of terrified thrill were my former teammate and the blonde idiot. As I'd suspected, Hanabi had lied, Hinata wasn't with them. The shopkeeper, standing beside me, leaned in while squinting his eyes. Well, I'll be, he gasped, that's the filthy demon child and his friend. I nodded, a wickedly grim smile spreading across my face at my discovery as I ejected the tape. Yes, it is. The man paled as he found a kunai's steel edge resting at his throat. And you saw nothing, correct? Why, yes, sir, he whimpered, unblinking. In the next moment, I had crushed the tape in my hand and left the shop. I raced for the Hokage Tower. So, they survived and escaped. Hinata. I've got you, bushy brow.